Hey guys, Halos213 here with another stream, and today we are doing some r/no sleep with 100% orange juice. It's been a while since we did one of these, so I thought, why not play one? I know I said Unity is coming. We're probably going to do it tomorrow, or no, sorry, Tuesday, because I don't share on Mondays. And then we'll catch you guys up with a, you know, update stream to that. Well, let me get a glass of water real quick. Okay. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, this was stream at Halos213. We're going to go around 6 episodes every single day for about 3 hours. This was a stream at Halos213. If you're watching this on Twitch, I upload the majority of this podcast to my YouTube channel at Halos213. If you want to know about my Discord, if you chat in my chat room for a little bit, my bot drops the link. Vice versa, the description of the YouTube video has the Discord link. It's a place where you can see me or any of my friends who go in there, or I call up to it in the past, or anybody who's been in there with the general chat. I also show the people I chat with up on there. What else? They, like, you know, if you want to get in the stream yourself, there's a chat room for that. I post when I go live, and the funny clips from the stream. So, for those who have never, you know, been a part of my stream before, pretty much, or not the stream, but the series of r/no sleep with text to voice. What I do is I play 100% orange juice. While I'm playing 100% orange juice, I mute the audio and I play some creepy music with r/no sleep stories, which are horror stories made on Reddit. I basically take the text from the story, I announce obviously who made the story, and I play them through a text-to-speech bot, and I mute myself so we can all listen to the story. And I had to talk a little bit about it afterwards, and then move on to the next. Rinse, repeat. So if you are scared to horror, or you're like, again, kind of like one of those people who shouldn't be watching that type of stuff, click off of this stream right now, go to my channel, go to anyone else's stream, just don't watch this because it does get spooky up in here. But yeah, so really quick, let me set up my game here. Another reason why I'm doing 100% orange juice is because rumor has it that there's a, what's it called, a event going on, and I kind of want to get into it. Let me wait for my audio to respond. There we go. And let me go and mute this. There you go. Cool. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. Let me get the game share up and I will start the spookies in a second here. And also, if my bot is a bit too loud, or I'm too loud, or the audio is too loud, let me know. I will be sure to adjust the audio to that. But otherwise, don't worry about it. Anyway. Yeah, that's good. Cool. Here is the game. It's pretty straightforward. If you don't know what 100% orange juice is, let me know. But also really quick, while I'm here off game, apparently those game coins, apparently you can use that to this arcade machine, which I did. I had a truckload of them, but I ended up spending them. This machine right here, you play for 7. Oh no, I have 7 tokens. Spend 3. Like here, watch. I'll do 2 of them for you. It's pretty much a place where you can get pets that acts as a Steam item. So I just got a chicken. Do it again. I got a heart. So these are just some taunts you can use in the game. But realistically, what you can do with the pets is you get 3 of the same kind. You can grind them to get a different colored pet. But if you go to player info and you go to avatar, you can equip these pets. So I do have a couple of pets. So if you see during a story when I'm looking for a new game, you see me like editing pets to certain roles, that's because I just want to equip pets. And for those who wanted to know, I have a seagull, a searchlight, a roboball, a reindeer, obviously from the one I've been had for a while, obviously the rare red and blue, Navi, I got a lizard, to me an iguana, but whatever, the frog, which is my ultra rare apparently, and now I got this chicken. So yeah, great. So just to show that off, because I didn't get to show that off during the actual time I was playing it. Anyway, now getting into the spookies, I'm going to start the first one here. So the first one, before I start hopping into a match here, I'm going to mute that, switch over to my spooky music. The first one we're hopping into here, tell me if that's too quiet. Let me do an audio check really quick for the audio. It is kind of quiet. Or he's up just a itsy bit. I just don't want this next one to be really loud. Yeah, it doesn't seem like we can do with that. Okay. So let me now set up the story. I already have the story inside the what's it called? My text-to-speech bot, so we don't have to worry about copying it over. But the first one, it's one of the shorter stories. It is Deathbed Confession. I think my dad killed his sister when they were kids. By Mr. Wolf Beaumont. That's WOLF, Wolf, BEAUMONT. Let's get right into this. And the story once again is, I think my dad killed my sister when they were kids. Let's go.
My dad just passed away from cancer, but he's been suffering from severe dementia for about 6 years now. Honestly, this seemed like a small mercy. At least he's at peace now, I hope. My dad was a quiet guy. He had a few friends and ran a hardware store in the small town I grew up in. He was a good father to me and my sister, kind and cheerful. He helped us with our homework, and would always find time to play with us. Even if running your own store with too many bills to pay were taxing him, he never showed it. Just love. That's why I'm really struggling. In his last few days we sat in vigil with him at the hospital, taking it in turns. I was with him the day before he passed, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to forget what I heard. Dad hasn't been himself for a long time. When the dementia first started appearing, he'd have bouts of anger and confusion, but it wasn't anything my mum couldn't handle. But those episodes only grew worse and more prolonged as the years have passed. By the end, he was committed to a care home, for his own safety and Mum's. My sister and I still live nearby, so we've been able to help Mum through all of this. But when he's having an episode, it's always been creepy, like we were talking to a stranger with eyes that didn't even feel like Dad's when he'd look at you. I know. That's dementia. It's awful and cruel. But it can't explain this. Dad was ranting, per usual, at the hospital. I couldn't even tell you what. It was random and nonsensical, changing from moment to moment. I'd learned to drown it out for the most part a long time ago. I was just sitting there, reading the paper, sipping a coffee. It was the middle of the night. Most of the nurses had gone home for the day. That's when I noticed Dad had stopped his ranting. He was suddenly quiet. I lowered the paper to find him watching me from the bed, those same dead eyes staring back at me. I killed them, you know. 7 little girls tumbling down a well. Gilly was the last to go. I heard a bang outside, and turned my head. One of the residents had dropped a cane, the echo reverberating down the corridor. I turned back to Dad, but he was lying back on the bed, rambling once again, eyes looking at nothing. So context, this story is well known in my family, and it's always been a dark cloud in our past. Dad had a sister called Gilly, his twin in fact. They were 8 years old when she disappeared. At the time 6 other girls around the same age had vanished as well across the county and state, and it was all but certain the same perpetrator had taken or done God knows what else, to Gilly. The kids in town had been forbidden from going out by then as police combed the county, but Dad and Gilly sneaked out one day to play. They'd been cooped up for weeks in the middle of summer. No one ever blamed Dad for it. But Gilly never came home. Dad told everyone they'd been playing hide and seek in the woods near the house, but he'd never been able to find her once he'd finished counting. No one ever questioned that version of events. No one ever thought. I'm torn. Do I tell someone? What will this do to my grandmother or our family? But don't the other victims' families deserve to know if it's true? Or the police at least. Maybe I imagined this. It was late. I'd just done a double shift at the yard and I was distracted. I don't know what to do. But I can't forget those dead eyes telling me about 7 little girls, tumbling down a well.
Okay, so that was pretty fucking creepy. Personally, if I were you, like, if we're actually honestly responding to this post, immediately, fuck yes, you tell the police. No matter what family member it is. I get that family is important, but, like, your dad has a problem. Anyway, so that was that one. Um... So yeah, that was, I don't know, that's creepy within itself. I don't know what to tell you. Like, holy shit. Hold up, let me try to set up this next one here, guys. Give me a second. But yeah, honestly, in these types of scenarios, because that's actually a very common scenario, and it is a horror story type of thing, like, when you think about it at the end of the day, because it is. But realistically, you tell somebody. Anyway, I know I haven't actually started a game yet. I'm currently just editing my cosmetics, so if it takes a little while for me to get into a game, you know, that's for that reason. But yeah. So anyway, this next one is by Mr. Epod D, which is capital E A capital P A lowercase T B P. And the name of his story is I'm a pregnant virgin, and I don't think the thing inside of me is human. Here we go.
My period was 4 days late. I wasn't really worried about this. My periods tend to be pretty irregular. My doctor had recommended birth control for it, but I declined because of my fear of it. But that story is far too much to unpack right now. I wasn't really that stressed about it. Why would I want my period to come anyway? It was stressful, my skin broke out, I ate too much and craved everything, and the cramps were paralyzing. So, I wasn't really missing out on something great. I'm also a virgin, so I didn't have that whole pregnancy scare thing to worry about when my period was late. I went on with my daily life those 4 days, trying to ignore that voice in the back of my head that kept telling me that even if it didn't come now, it was going to come soon and I was going to have to deal with it anyway. Then it was a week late. And then a week and a half. I started to get worried at the 2-week mark when I also started to feel sick. It felt like allergies, but as if I was feeling every single person's allergies all at once. I went to the doctor, and after a couple of tests I got the news, I was pregnant. At first, I laughed. There was no way, that was literally impossible unless someone had changed the rules of how babies were made. I told the doctor this, and the reply she gave me was something along the lines of, I don't know what to tell you, you're pregnant, Lisa. I went home, ignoring the news because I knew this was impossible. Then the paranoia set in and I started thinking, what if someone accidentally got me pregnant? Like Jane the Virgin style? But, that didn't make any sense, and the timeline between how far along I was, according to my doctor, and my last gynecologist visit didn't add up, so it definitely wasn't that. After that, I ran through the whole, what if I'm carrying the next Messiah and no one told me scenario, but I quickly dismissed that one too. I don't think I would be the person who would be chosen for that job, even if I was the last woman in the world. I took a few more tests, and they were all positive. I had some blood work done, also positive. So that was it. I was pregnant. I might not know why, or how, but I knew that I was. I scheduled the abortion about 2 days after that. Fast forward about 2 weeks, I was still pregnant. I had more blood work, took more tests, got more positives. It's not like I could go back and get another abortion though, so, I did nothing and I just decided to ignore it and see what happened. About a month and a half in, from the first time I found out I was pregnant, I started to show. This was odd to me, considering that I didn't remember any of my friends showing until they were about 4 months in. I figured my body was just different. When people started to ask, I told them I had gone to a sperm bank. It was a hell of a lot easier than telling them how I was a virgin who somehow wound up pregnant. Besides, who would believe that crap? At month 2 the morning sickness hit me hard. I would get up about 3 times in the middle of the night to throw up. I would throw up constantly all during the day until I felt like my stomach was going to rip open. The good thing was that I work from home, so I didn't have to worry about throwing up in front of coworkers and stuff. Month 3 is when things got a little bit crazier. First, it started kicking. It was an odd sensation at first, just weird, something I was not used to. Then it began to kick harder. Then it started kicking in different directions. I felt it kick towards my back one time. Another time I swear it kicked my lungs because I felt the air rush out of me and I couldn't breathe for a good few seconds. I blacked out for a bit and woke up in a different room. That wasn't the only time that happened though. Another time, I got incredibly tired all of a sudden and laid down to take a nap, to realize that I had somehow driven halfway across town to a deserted farm. On 2 separate occasions, I ended up in this weird field. I googled the 2 properties, but everything that came up was normal, land that was sold or that once contained wheat or some other kind of plant. No murders, no missing people, no reports of supernatural activity. A couple of weeks into the 5th month, I got incredibly sick, to the point where I wasn't able to hold anything down, not even water. I passed out, likely due to dehydration, and woke up in the rundown farmhouse on the old farm, covered in blood, feeling great. I drove home, confused and scared, and locked all my doors and windows. After that, I stopped traveling to random places. A few days after that, around the 6th or 7th month, I got super nauseous. I spent about an hour on the bathroom floor, gagging into the toilet. I could feel the vomit making its way up out of my mouth, slowly like thick liquid sliding out of a glass. It felt like something was climbing up my throat almost. Finally, I was able to vomit, only to realize that I wasn't vomiting food. Instead, some kind of bug was making its way out of the inside of my body. I screamed when I saw the dozens of larvae-like critters plop into the water in the toilet seat. I couldn't close my mouth, of course, then they would just be stuck in there. So, I spent the next few minutes gagging and trying to get them all out, flushing the toilet periodically to get rid of them. Afterward, I brushed my teeth 8 times. The next morning I felt fine, but there were deep, black, and purple stretch marks all over my stomach and sides. I tried to wash and moisturize, but they hurt to the touch. Even when my clothing would rub against my skin, the pain was so unbearable that it made me scream in pain. I spent the rest of that day in a sports bra. The other weird thing is that people kept forgetting that I was pregnant until I mentioned it. This happened with a few people, even my mom, and my doctors. Whenever I would go to my checkups, the ultrasound technician would get extremely quiet and begin to act in a robotic way. I was told the same thing every time: "Everything looks great, Lisa. Bye." For a while, everything went back to normal. Then, about 2 hours ago, something strange happened. I'm at month 9, I'm due in about 3 weeks or so. Last night I received a call from a number that I didn't recognize, so of course, I didn't answer. The number called for more times, each call coming in within seconds of the one before. Finally, I answered. Before I could even say hello, a woman's voice spoke. "You have my child, I'm coming to get it tonight." Then, the line went dead and the calls disappeared from my phone. I locked all my doors and went up to bed. About 10 minutes ago, my doorbell rang. I, of course, didn't answer it. I could hear someone walking around my front yard, and then stop when they were under my bedroom window. Yoo-hoo! I'm here for my child. I sat in the dark, writing this, trying to figure out what to do. I called the police a few minutes ago, but they still haven't arrived. Outside, the person on my lawn keeps shouting things. Any minute now. I'm here for my child. Yoo-hoo! Let me in, let me in. About a second ago the crying and screaming started. And it's coming from inside me.
Okay, well that's fucking terrifying. To be fair, I'll be honest, usually when you haven't had sex to your knowledge, that means someone raped you under some type of like stance where you didn't feel anything. So realistically, that like right there, like minus the story, because obviously it's probably obviously a non-fiction story. If it's true, goddamn, you need. I don't know what to tell you, but if this if this was actually real, like where you have this scenario of like, I didn't remember having sex with anybody, but you still like somehow are having like thing, that means someone probably either you don't remember and you have some type of like disease or amnesia, or someone raped you and you need to immediately get that looked into, and find out whose DNA is on the other end of that, you know, fetus that's inside your body. So that's what I was going to say. But otherwise, so far a really weird, one of those weird and creepy stories. I like it. I'm not going to hate on it. Sorry, I was grabbing another story. So I honestly I don't know what to tell you on that front, advice-wise, because obviously can't really do advice with horror stories. They're meant to be terrifying. Hold up, let me do my turn really quick while I get the story here. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you, honestly. That's like horrifying. Anyway, the next one I got here is called I Hate Mother's Day. The cleanup is horrendous, by P.N. Wood. And again, the name of this story, let me get the story in, is I Hate the Mother's Day Cleanup. This one's kind of long, so let's straddle it. Here we
Last night I waited. I finally saw. It happens once a year. No matter where I move to, no matter how far from civilization I can get, there will be a dead animal on my front door buried in an inch of dandruff. Sometimes it is a raccoon, other times it's some poor neighbor's pet dog. Their teeth are always missing, and the flakes of dead skin are the size of dimes. The most fucked up part? I just end up missing my mom. Mother's Day is a bitch for me. It was hard enough before this started happening. My mom died 10 years ago. I've spent my entire adult life without her guidance. The pain of grief is mostly gone, has been for years, but this Hallmark holiday sneaks up on me. To me, it is just a reminder of what I have lost. She was not just a parent, she was a friend, one who was always there when I was bullied and picked on for being too sensitive. Until she wasn't. So, for the first 5 years after her death, while others bought cards and flooded Facebook with cheesy memes, I bought a 6-pack. And drank myself to sleep. That was the first 5 years. Then the dead animals started showing up. I was bullied relentlessly as a child. I have always worn my heart on my face, could never hold back a smile or tears. It made me a target. Boys aren't supposed to cry, they are supposed to die with a frustrated liver and stone face estranged from their kids. I thought that becoming an adult would make it easier, but living in a small town means that nothing truly changes. Your childhood bullies become the bitch of people whose tables you wait. The first year it was a raccoon. Given my history, I figured it was an especially malicious prank. Sure, the dandruff was weird, but what part of it wasn't? I moved as soon as I could. Fuck that hick town. A year later, living on the 6th floor of a city apartment, it happened again. This wasn't on the building's stoop, mind you, it was right in front of my apartment door. A calico cat belonging to my next door neighbor, no teeth. Everyone there suspected me of doing it. They always do. So I continued to move. 2 separate towns. 2 states away from each other. But it never stopped. Once 6,000 feet up a mountain in a cabin, a black bear that time, then in a sterile suburb, a golden retriever. Security cameras never pick anything up. They are broken by morning. My neighbors never see anything either. I'm back in an apartment now. The kind with a guard at the door. I nearly go broke each month paying for it. Last night I came home with enough energy drinks to make my doctor cringe, some eye drops, and a brand new stool. High-tech this plan was not, but goddammit it didn't need to be. I perched myself right in front of my apartment's door, found some audiobooks on my phone, and cracked open an energy drink. I leaned my head against the door and watched through the door's peephole. By hour 2 my back hurt and my forehead felt raw. Through the fisheye lens, I could see a stretch of 200 carpeted feet straight out of the shining laid out in front of me. I watched every neighbor enter their apartment for the night. I waited, and I grew tired. The energy drinks just made me anxious and jittery. At 1:15 a.m. I saw it. A naked figure out in the distance at the end of the claustrophobic hallway. The hallway door did not move. It did not walk in. In a moment there was no one there, and in another there was. I double-checked my locks. It took only a second. When I looked back through, the figure was closer. Its hair was stringy, its body wrinkled with a distended belly. My mother, clutching the antlers of a dead deer behind her. My breath stilled. My heart sank. I blinked and she was 100 feet closer, as if she teleported. Dead deer in tow. I pulled out my phone, dialed in 911 and then stopped before hitting the call button. What would I tell them? Did I believe it myself? I looked through the peephole once more to see the face of my mother inches away from the door smiling. No, a smile is something the living do. This was a facsimile of joy. Skin had completely covered her eye sockets. Behind a yawning gap in her teeth, her tongue writhed like an oyster fighting to get out of its shell. Her bony hand reached out to the door. I backed away, nearly falling off of my stool to discover that the cracks of my doorway were being filled. The light of the hallway underneath my door was suddenly blocked. Every crevice was suddenly covered in skin. I screamed as loud and as shrill as I ever had. I suddenly felt a presence behind me. I turned around and found nothing. With reluctant, yet feverish curiosity I looked through the hole once more. She was gone. It was 1:16. The whole terrifying ordeal took only a minute, but it felt like a dozen more. The light slowly crept back from under my door as the skin turned dead and flaked off. I did not have the courage to go out front until the sun rose. The dead deer she left for me, like the other animals, had no teeth. Its lips had been chewed off, its bloody gums bare and open for all to see. Like the others, it was buried in dead skin, large dandruff-like flakes, the size of dimes. Nothing was left growing on my door. I have been haunted by her for a decade. I forget about her, I move on, I try to live my life, but every Mother's Day sneaks up on me. I open my door to greet the day and are met with a grotesque, pagan-like offering of death. I cannot make sense of it. Maybe there is no meaning to make sense of. So I move. I move so goddamn far away, but I can never shake her off. The most fucked up thing about all of this, when I wake up to a poor dead animal on the foot of my doorstep, I just end up missing her. Memories of her life are bittersweet. They are always happy at first, but inevitably tainted by the bitterness of her passing. I find myself in public having to hold back tears while I am on the bus, or in line at the grocery store. It is a chore cleaning up after her. At least the deer wasn't as bad as the bear, but moving such a massive dead thing and hiding it away is no easy task. I do it, I always find a place to hide it, but next year it will be more grotesque. Next year it might be bigger. And I spend the time in between trying not to think about it.
Okay, from an outside perspective, you get the fuck out of there, man. I would find the best way to try and get video evidence of said thing, and then just try and show it to the cops and be like, listen, this is it. Call it special effects or not. Like, honestly, that's like, holy shit. That's fucking insane. I would be shitting my pants. I don't blame him for 1 second. I honestly don't know what to tell you, but holy fuck, that's terrifying. Dear God. Like, could you imagine how, like, fucking rough that would be mentally on you? And then, like, you know, how, like, oh, I don't even know how to put it. It's like you're stuck with this problem that reminds me of your mother dying, and you can't, like, avoid it. That is, like, so fucking rough. Like, holy shit. Like, I don't know, man. Anyway, let me pull up the next one. I really should be getting ahead of on this. I'm kind of falling behind. Next one I have is a Happy Couple Farm by Mr. or Mrs. Don't know who your name is. Wolffooty. It's kind of a shorter one. I'm trying to find the long ones for you guys so we have them, but we got another showing a Happy Farm Couple by Wolffooty. Here we go.
I had planned a vacation with my girlfriend, Rosa. We had been dating for about 5 or so months at that point and had wanted to go to a hotel for the night, if you know what I mean. We ended up finding a cheap hotel near a farm in Springdale, Utah. It was a 2-hour drive from my house, but the price couldn't be beat. We decided to stay for a couple days and rent a car to drive around in, instead of taking a bus or an Uber to bring us around. That Thursday afternoon, at around 5:30 or so, after picking up our rental car, an old, beat-up pickup truck, we headed off to Springdale. After the long, hot, 2-hour drive, we rounded a corner and saw a large cornfield to our left, covered with at least 9 scarecrows. Wow, look at those scarecrows. Rosa gushed, leaning out the window to look at them. They look so real. Wow, you're right, I said with a slight chuckle as I turned back to face the road after a quick glance at the large rows of corn. I saw a sign that read Happy Couple Farms. As I turned back, I saw an old man in blue baseball hat and a brown leather jacket standing in the road, and slammed my foot on the brake. Whoa! I yelled, annoyed. I ended up swerving around him and pulling into the parking lot of the hotel. There were only 2 other cars there, and I could immediately tell why. I stepped out of the car, and the second I did, an unexplainable scent filled my nose. I winced and gagged at it. Ugh, now I can see why this place was so cheap, I exclaimed to Rosa, who was busy grabbing her stuff from the back of the car. It's probably from the animals at the farm over there, we'll get used to it eventually, she said optimistically. That's one of the things I loved about her. She always saw the bright side of things. After grabbing our duffel bags, we found the door and entered the building. On the inside, it was built like a beautiful cabin met fancy diner. The walls were lined a red velvety texture, with deer antlers turned into candle holdings hooked onto them. In the middle of the room was a large black leather couch, near a small wooden coffee table which rested on some old faux fur rugs. I looked to the right and saw the receptionist at the front desk. "Hello, sir. I'm here to check in." He looked at me for a moment, then turned around, shuffling through the drawers of a desk behind him. He turns back with a smile, and our room key in his hand. "Thank you, sir," I say. "Also, who was that man in the road? The old one with the blue hat?" He looked up quickly, and I caught a look in his eye that something was wrong. "Him? Oh, he's just the owner of that farm over there," he says, pointing out the window. I lift an eyebrow in confusion and study him for a moment, before Rosa pipes up. "Hey, what's that farm over there anyway? Is it open for people to visit?" she asked, pointing out the window near the receptionist. "I've been dying to try some fresh corn from a farm but haven't had the chance to go to one." The man stiffened a bit, then awkwardly locked his fingers together. It's not a good place to go. The couple who works there always stops by to see if any new people have stopped in. I get they're trying to be nice, but it's a bit odd. You know. I nodded my head. Yeah, I understand. Maybe they just wanna see how business is doing? Trying to buy the land off you, maybe. The man shrugs, but something still seemed off. Maybe the owners of the farm made that stench to get people to not go to the hotel so it would go out of business and they can take the land? I don't know, it's not something I really seem to care about since we're only staying for a few days. I snap back from my thoughts to see Rosa walking up the old, creaky wooden stairs on the far side of the room. "Come on, let's go check out our room and eat, I'm starving," she says, dragging all of our stuff upstairs. "Coming, sweetheart. Put down those bags before you hurt yourself." I turn back to the receptionist and thank him with a quick nod before going to take some bags and head to our room. It was a nice room. One big bed, with a soft, fluffy black comforter and 2 pillows. There were random paintings hung on the wall of horses and plants, and a large window which looked out to the farm again. At this point it was around dusk, 8 p.m. We set our stuff down in a large brown chair in the corner. We chatted for a bit, eating our room service order of pizza, fries, and a liter of root beer. By the time we finished and decided to get ready for bed, the street lights turned on, faintly illuminating the outline of the field and the scarecrows. I glanced around at each one as the sound of Rosa's shower songs playlist played in the background. I began counting them off in my head. I kept counting until I hit 10. Confused, I went through and counted again. Yep, there were 10 scarecrows. But there were only 9 earlier. I never saw the owners come out. I brushed it off as the owners could have just put it in as we were unpacking and eating. I pulled the curtains shut and finished getting ready for bed. I glanced around the room to make sure everything was all set before we went to bed. The main light was off, the curtains were closed, the windows were closed. After that I ended up drifting off to sleep. However, a few hours later, I woke up, shivering. I sat up and glanced around the room as my eyes adjust to the darkness. I can feel a cool breeze coming from somewhere in the room. I switch on the light and my breath catches in my throat as I see where the breeze is coming from. I see the curtains pulled open and fluttering in front of 2 large, open windows. Rosa hates keeping the windows open at night. I instinctively look to my side to see if Rosa is okay. "Rosa," I cut myself off with a short gasp. She wasn't there. I ripped the covers off and ran to the window. grabbing the curtains as I looked out. I took my hands off to lean on the windowsill, and stifled a scream. They had blood on them. And it wasn't mine. From the streetlight nearest our window, I could see another large spot of blood on the ground. I hurriedly grabbed my jacket and shoes before running down the stairs and through the front door. The receptionist didn't stop me, I didn't even hear him. He must have been asleep. I ran towards the light and began following the pile of blood. It led right across the street. I ran through a row of crushed stalks of corn following the trail of blood. I tripped on something and fell, the air being knocked out of my lungs. As I sat there catching my breath, a metallic scent filled my nose. It was the strong scent of blood. And a lot more than what I had seen. I glanced up, and to my horror I see a scarecrow, but not any scarecrow. It was Rosa. My vocal cords froze and my lips quivered at what I was looking at. Where her eyes had been, were bloody, black buttons, poorly sewn into her sickly pale skin. The edges of her face were sewn with pieces of thick, black rope, and straw stuck out between the stitches. Her forearms and legs were nailed to a large T-shaped piece of wood, with blood dripping down and soaking into the cracks. I look to the right and see another scarecrow. It was the receptionist. That's why he was quiet when I left, I thought with a shiver. He wasn't there. I pull out my phone and call 911 while running as fast as I could back to the hotel. Help. My girlfriend T, the receptionist, come to the farm across the hotel quickly. About 15 minutes later, they show up and inspect everything. As I went to show them the mangled bodies of my girlfriend and the receptionist, I recoil with shock at what I see, 2 regular scarecrows. But they were just, I muttered to myself. After that the police told me to show them everything. But the trail of blood, the bodies, everything was gone. The only proof I had was an open window. They had asked me a few more questions and then left. As I was leaving, I turned back and glanced at the scarecrows. One of them has a tear of blood running down its cheek.
That's terrifying. Yep. That's that, alright. Holy shit. I think anything with scarecrows, like, people, like, when you think of scarecrow, well, at least for me, I think of, like, Batman and stuff. But holy shit. Like, seriously? I would shit my pants. Like, I guess I would shit with my pants with a lot of them. But, like, holy fuck. Okay? Like, if you have a fucking scarecrow, I don't know. I don't have to tell you. It's fucking terrifying. But yeah, like, honestly, I would be terrified. I would simply be terrified because, think of it this way. Scarecrows are meant to scare crows, obviously. Like it says in the name. And the idea of a design is like to scare off crops. But the idea is, us as humans, we identify to say, okay, what is a scarecrow to us? A scarecrow to us is something, that scares away, or let me rephrase, sorry. I don't know where I was going with that for the beginning portion. But like I was saying before, what do we use to identify what is scary? Well, we think of what we think is scary, and then we put it on a scarecrow thinking that it will scare away the birds. That's the general idea. Because we as an unknown form or like humanoid figure, when we don't know what it looks like, it's scary to us. But when we take a step back to be like, okay, what is scary, to a crow, a humanoid form? And the fact of the matter is, when you take it to a horror story sense, you are straight up shitting your pants because, it's a fucking, it's a scarecrow. So I feel like just having that in there alone could scare the pants off the majority of audiences that are easily prone to horror stories. And I feel that people underestimate the icon of a scarecrow. And, I feel like that I'm kind of glad they did one of these types of stories because it's a rarely underestimated theme. Anyway, the next one we got is by YJYPP. It's called Night Crawlers. So this one is kind of long. So look forward to that because again, I like long stories, and because they go into way more depth and stuff. So yeah, well, let me wait for my turn really quick here to move, and then I will do set thing. Although it's connecting to a spectator. Once it's my turn, I'll start playing the story. But yeah, so far I think we're on a nice roll already. Personally, I like the minimized story. Fuck, I need stars right now. Also, I just found this new character that I forgot I got, so I'm gonna amp that up. I also need to take a stop at the store. Anyway, let's get into this. Nightcrawlers, by JYAPP. Here we go.
I moved to the city because of my fear of my mother's magic nightcrawlers. Whenever I see conventional nightcrawlers after a rain, I'm filled with panic and flee. My mother was like all the other mothers in the northern Michigan town where I grew up. She would yell at us kids for tracking in mud and tend to our cuts and bruises with loving cuddles and words. She would feed us sweet treats, my favorite being her apple pie. If you were on her good side, she would serve it with a thick slice of cheddar cheese on top. She routinely got the blue ribbon at the county fair pie contest. In one respect, she was unlike any other mother in town. In late winter, when the other mothers were poring over their seed catalogs, deciding what new color of a flower or what new kinds of tomatoes to raise, Mom would be studying her magical creatures catalog. Mom wanted to order some small garden dragons, but they couldn't survive our Zone 6 climate. The big Norwegian dragons cost too much and ate too much. The reason that no one could match Mom's apple pie was that she got special spices from the magical creatures catalog. This resulted in competition with our next door neighbor, Mrs. Biddle. Mrs. Biddle's apple pie kept coming in second place no matter what she did with nutmeg and cinnamon. She simply couldn't match the flavor. What Mrs. Biddle could do was raise a beautiful garden. The garden club awarded the best garden in town every year to Mrs. Biddle and honored her at a high tea. What made matters worse is that Mrs. Biddle was a vicious gossip. She was the kind who made things up if she didn't know anything. Time and again Mom came home from shopping, angrily slammed the door shut and said, "Do you know that old?" At which point my father would say, "Martha," and rolled his eyes at us kids. Mom would continue, "That old witch said." Then Mom would repeat something that was total news to us, like Mom was seen drunk or that my parents were getting divorced or worse. All of this added to Mom's desire to have the best garden in town. One morning Mom got up before dawn and peeked into Mrs. Biddle's garden. When my dad got up for breakfast, Mom excitedly said, "I know what that old hag is doing. She empties her chamber pots into the garden." Dad, knowing where the conversation was going, said, "We spent a lot of money on indoor plumbing. We are not going back to chamber pots." Dad owned the local hardware store and was making a lot of money selling plumbing fixtures. Mom was forbidden to use chamber pots. All of this frustrated Mom because she needed to make her garden better than Mrs. Biddle's. In late February, when Mom got her magical creatures catalog, she opened it and started poring over the pages. She turned over a page, saw what was there and sat bolt upright, shouting, "That's it." She had me go to the basement for the canned apples. Tonight, we were having a celebratory dinner. When Dad got home, he was greeted by the sight of the dining room table set for an elegant dinner, with his favorite, standing rib roast, in the center of the table. He knew immediately that Mom was going to ask him a special favor that night, but he enjoyed the drama and went along with the event. After a wonderful dinner, Mom said, "You've worked hard enough today. No chores after dinner, just rest." As he sat in his easy chair, Mom brought him a glass of his favorite bourbon on ice. She even added a sprinkle of her apple pie spice. After he took the first sip and remarked how good the drink was, Mom brought out the magical creatures catalog. She showed Dad the page with the magic night crawlers and remarked how they were efficient at aerating the soil, would drive cutworms, grubs, and moles from the yard, and that their castings, gardener talk for worm manure, acted as a superior fertilizer. She also held her thumb over the part that warned that these night crawlers were carnivorous and extremely dangerous. Of course, Dad said yes, and she soon ordered the special night crawlers along with a large jar of salve for crawler bites, special heavy rubber gloves, and high-top rubber boots. Later in the spring, when it was safe to ship the night crawlers without freezing them, they arrived. Mom got a dead mouse from one of our traps, put on a pair of the heavy rubber gloves, gathered us around to watch, and dropped the mouse into the package. Snarling sounds came from the container as the night crawlers fought for their share of mouse scraps. She then waved one gloved finger over the package and we watched as the night crawlers struck at her finger. She then showed that nothing of the mouse was left, meat, hair, and bones were gone. We were allowed to feed the night crawler as long as we had the gloves on. Soon we were catching bugs and checking the mouse traps for morsels and tossing them in the package. If anyone was careless and bitten, Mom would rub the ointment on the bite and scolded them for not being careful. While we waited for the late frost danger to pass, we kept the night crawlers in the refrigerator to keep them in a stupor. Meanwhile, Mom pored over the instructions and looked at the special powders that came in the package. On May 20th she sprinkled one of the powder packages around the edges of our yard while muttering some incantation. She explained that it was to keep the night crawlers in our yard. Then she released them, fed them some scraps of meat to help them get established, and they were soon tunneling into the yard. The grubs and cutworms disappeared, the moles no longer ventured in our yard, and the tunneling of the worms aerated the soil. The flowers and vegetables prospered like never before. Dad saw the first sign of trouble when he was enjoying a cup of coffee on the back porch before opening the store. One of the worms seductively waved its tail in the air. A robin, seeing a chance for a quick meal, landed and pulled on the worm tail. 5 other night crawlers ambushed the robin and overwhelmed it. The robin was soon consumed. I had a pet kitten that I called Kitty that escaped into the backyard. The worms quickly attacked her and killed the kitten. While I stood on the back porch crying, Mom came out and said, "It's all your fault, I told you to keep the pets out of the garden." If anyone asked why we wore high boots and gloves in the garden, we said we were concerned about poison ivy. This explanation satisfied everyone except for Mrs. Biddle. The usual garden varmints who survived totally abandoned our yard and moved next door to her yard. The refugees put enormous pressure on her garden, while ours was lush and green. She kept looking over the fence to see what we were doing. It was getting to be late summer, and the garden club would soon determine who got the best gardener prize. Early one morning before sunrise, I awoke when I heard someone shout, "Help!" I got Mom up, told her that I thought someone was lying on the ground in our backyard. We put on our gloves and boots, Mom grabbed a flashlight, and we went out back. Shining the light on the person lying down, we could see it was Mrs. Biddle. As proof that we were too late, a night crawler chewed its way out of her left eye, then draped itself over her nose and ate its way into her right cheek. Mom said, "Serves that old witch right. She shouldn't have been our yard snooping." Mom then had me get an old pup tent out of the garage, which we set it up to cover the body. Mom said, "Biddle will be all gone by this evening." I got up with Mom early the next morning, took the pup tent down, and the body had vanished. Her leather shoes and her wool sweater had also disappeared. Clothing made with synthetic fibers were there, which Mom gathered up to burn in our trash pile. We also found Mrs. Biddle's wedding band. After Mom consulted with Dad, we came up with a plan. Mom and Dad went next door and gave Mr. Biddle the wedding band and a bottle of whiskey. Mr. Biddle was told that his wife left him and went to stay with her cousin in Ohio. He was happy to get the whiskey. Mom then started a rumor that Mrs. Biddle left Mr. Biddle because of his drinking. The other ladies were glad to believe this story since Mrs. Biddle had spread malicious gossip about all of them. The appointed afternoon that the garden committee came by to inspect Mom's garden was sunny and hot. The bright sunlight and heat made the night crawlers lethargic. To ensure that there were no accidents, Mom sprinkled one of the powders in the garden while muttering an incantation. She said that this was to ensure that the crawlers slept until morning. That year Mom won the Best Gardener and became the guest of honor at the Garden Club high tea. Winters are hard in northern Michigan, and the night crawlers did not survive. The next year Dad forbade Mom from ordering the special night crawlers again, saying he didn't want any of his children disappearing. Mr. Biddle let his garden go to weeds, and for years I had the task of bringing an occasional bottle of whiskey to his house. With Mrs. Biddle gone, Mom won the Best Gardener again and again. I still have nightmares where night crawlers have me down on the ground and are eating my flesh. The mere suggestion of visiting a flower show sends me into a panic attack.
So personally, I don't know that much about night crawlers, gonna be honest with you. But when it comes down to it, holy fuck, if that's accurate, like, because I was trying to do some of my own personal research. As far as I know, they seem like normal worms. But God forbid, if that's actually what what's it called? One of these critters actually does. Holy shit. Like, you know? God damn. Like, that's terrifying, honestly. And the fact of the matter is, in reality, obviously, if you own or like gardening animals or animals in general that have to deal with what did I just had a story. That have to deal with this type of stuff, obviously you tell the police what's happening. Don't be like, oh, Mom said not to you know, what's it called, say anything to the police about it. It's like, you tell the police, god damn it, you tell the police immediately. It shouldn't have to be, you know, said. Anyway, that's that. That's all I gotta say about that. It's creepy. Good job. You scared me. Next one we got is by Insert Trademark 7. It's just trademarks. It's 7 hours ago is when it was posted. And the story is called Do You Hear Them? The Footsteps? ? Here we go.
It was when winter began to die, a bleak and cold late February, that I first heard them. The driveway to my house had snowed over during the day, and I walked slowly, savoring the way my boots imprinted into the virgin snow, how I changed my surroundings with each step. As I took out my keys to unlock my door, I heard scuffling footsteps behind me. For some reason, I thought of children, maybe because the footsteps were light, or because of the way they slid and jumped through the snow, enjoying the last few scraps of winter. I turned to say hi, my neighborhood being littered with packs of children, playing in the streets any and all hours of the day. Yet the driveway was empty, nothing but cold wind and slow falling snowflakes. I could have dismissed it as a daydream, had I not noticed the circle of small footsteps in the snow. I was creeped out, to say the last. I was a teenage girl, and not even a particularly brave one. I had seen enough horror movies to decide I wouldn't be the stereotypical white girl who died in the first few minutes of the film. I just leapt inside and slammed the door after me, before curling up on the couch with a blanket and my cat, Arya, a name which my sister chose and which, unfortunately, my poor cat was stuck with. She purred softly as I stroked her ears, and I browsed Reddit to distract myself. I sent a message to a group chat with my friends about the footsteps, but the responses were mixed, mostly consisting of either bullshit, haha okay, big mood, or that happened to my grandma. We found her dead in her house, and her cat had chewed her face off. Alright, that last one I imagined, but that didn't stop me from glancing up every now and then, in fear of seeing a little blonde girl with ponytails and a bloodied dress or a similar horror movie cliché staring down at me. It must have been half an hour before I noticed the black and white cat standing on the carpet in front of the couch, her back bent at an unnatural angle, emitting a steady stream of hissing sounds. I jumped up, quite violently throwing Arya away. She landed next to the other cat, at which point it became apparent how identical they looked. Not one hair was different, and yet neither seemed to notice each other. Instead, they had both turned to me, hissing and standing so perfectly still that they could have been stuffed had it not been for the noise. I backed away slowly, feeling close to hysterical. Keys jingled at the front door and I whipped my head toward the noise, before turning back to the cats. Only Arya stood there. Her back fell down from its violent arch, her legs dropped and she lay down on the carpet. The hissing was the last to leave, transforming into a soft purr. What the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, I whispered to myself, running a hand through my hair. The door opened, and from where I stood I saw my older sister step into the house and yell a cheerful hey. Jenny took off her coat and her shoes and skipped over to the fridge in the small kitchen next to the living room, in an incessantly good mood. She noticed me staring and arched an eyebrow. "You okay, Emma?" She popped open the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the table. "Jesus, you won't, it's fucking messed up. Okay, don't look at me like I'm crazy, yet." But it was probably just a hallucination, but for a second there I swear there was another cat just like Arya in the room. To my surprise, Jenny laughed and dug a pineapple slice from the plastic carton. "Oh, sometimes if I'm really tired, I think that I see two of something. No wait, that's just when I'm fucked." "Oh my god, you're high, aren't you?" She pulled my face closer and stared into my eyes, as if checking for dilated pupils. I swatted her arm away and she grinned. "Fuck off. I'm not in the mood." Somehow, though, my irritation at my sister seemed to dull my fear, and my memories of the surreal event seemed hazy, unreal. I flopped down onto the couch, took out my phone and submerged myself into the familiar world of the internet. The rest of the week was regular, if not plain boring. It was only the next Friday that I heard them again. The snow was melting, turning the ground into a mud that swallowed one's foot with each step. I was running to my house, holding a physics textbook above my head to protect myself from the rain. Of course, I then realized I had paid $80 for that book, and tucked it into my coat instead. The whole street was empty and silent except for the constant patter of raindrops and my feet hitting the ground as I sprinted. The quiet made me notice the footsteps right away. Just like before, I knew they were children's. I turned my head. Nobody was behind me. Was I going crazy? It would be such a cliché if this was the movie trope where it turns out I'm a patient in a mental hospital just daydreaming everything. I stopped and turned around. I could just about discern footsteps in the mud. "Leave me alone. Fucking leave me alone." I suppose I looked crazy, yelling into empty space while the cold rain bit into my skin. I started jogging again, still clutching the heavy book to my chest. I heard the footsteps, but they only prompted me to run faster. I flew into the house and shut the door behind me, breathing heavily as I sank down, boots trailing mud onto the hallway floor. This time, I stayed far away from Arya, ignoring her meows. Instead, I curled up under a blanket on my bed, shivering and twitching periodically. I heard the jingle of keys again. I looked out from under the blanket to see Jenny walk in. "Hey!" She reached into the fridge and took out a fruit salad, popping off the lid. "You okay, Emma?" What the fuck? I blurted out. Outside, everything was snowed over. The mud was gone, replaced with pristine, white snow. And Jenny took out a pineapple slice and ate it. Oh, sometimes if I'm really tired, I think that I see two of something. No wait, that's just when I'm fucked. Oh my god, you're high, aren't you? She pulled my face closer and stared into my eyes, as if checking for dilated pupils. I swatted her arm away. Wait. No. No, I didn't swat her arm away. And she couldn't have asked that, because I didn't tell her about the cats. But there she stood, amused, and still holding her goddamn fruit salad. I shook my head, rubbing my eyes and breathing heavily. Jenny, what did you mean by what you just said? But Jenny just stood there, smiling, holding the plastic carton in her left hand. What the fuck is wrong with you? I screamed. She didn't move, but for a slight strain in her smile. I pried the salad out of her hand and threw it on the floor. I stared down at it, my hands trembling. You okay, Emma? She said. Jenny stood before me, holding her fruit salad. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it. And however much I was scared and confused, I lay down on the couch, took out my phone and stared. I held the phone above my face, even when my hand trembled with exhaustion and I struggled not to drop it. I couldn't pry my eyes away from the screen. In my peripheral vision, I saw Jenny. She popped open the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the table. I stared at the phone. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it. I stared at the phone. She popped open the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the table. I stared at the phone. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it. I stared at the phone. She ate the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the slice. On and on, until dusk fell, and with it, my hand seemed to lower of my own accord. As soon as the opportunity came, I ran up the stairs and into my room, slamming the door behind me. Outside of the window, children ran through the mud and the rain into their homes. Emma, have you considered maybe going to the doctor? My friends all nodded along and dug into their lunches. I slammed my tray down onto the table in the canteen and sat down. Oh yeah, sure. Hi, sorry, is this the doctor's office? Yeah, so you know how sometimes days seem to repeat themselves? Literally? Yeah, and sometimes you move to the past? And you hear footsteps when there are none? Oh, you don't know. Wait, the mental institute? Forever? Well shit, guess I'll just kill myself. I mimed hanging myself while my friends looked on skeptically. Emma, look, we love you and all, but have you considered that this actually is a delusion, and having some medicine for it would help you? Sure, I'll ask my sister. Oh wait. I smile condescendingly. My friends rolled their eyes and moved on from the discussion. The day was warm, but a solitary snowflake fluttered into the palm of my hand. The days passed as most days do chronologically, that is. I spent most of them at friends' houses, afraid of what would happen if I went home. I was almost certain my hallucinations were gone, though until the middle of March, when spring was just blearily opening its eyes. As always, I was nearing my driveway when the steps came to me. They seemed more urgent this time, faster. I willed myself not to turn, but my head seemed to do so of my own accord. The steps behind me stopped, yet there, on the gravel, lay two small shadows. They seemed to move in the breeze. As I started to back away, the shadows seemed to move closer and stretch as my viewpoint changed. One of the shadows dipped into a crack in the road, and in that moment, he shattered, pieces of the shadow burst out, scattered on the road like leaves in the wind, puzzle pieces I couldn't solve. I turned around and ran into the house. I didn't even bother to shut the door behind me. I waited for her to come. For the keys to jingle. Jenny. Stop. Look at me. I held the fridge closed as she tried to reach in for her fruit salad. Tell me what's happening. Do you remember it, too? The day which repeated? Why is this happening? And who are the footsteps? She said nothing, but there were tears in her eyes. Is it just this house? Is it a curse? Am I just fucking insane? She shook her head, popped open the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the table. You okay, Emma? She sobbed. I see two of something. I gripped her shoulder. Why are you repeating this? Please. Suddenly, her head shot up. It's glitching. It's glitching, Emma, but I can see the code. She grabbed at the air in front of her. I started walking back, tears falling from my eyes as I cupped a hand in front of my mouth. What? What's glitching? I don't understand. She seemed to just appear in front of me, gripping me by the shoulders and staring me in the eyes. I had never seen her look so disheveled. My sister had been mild and calm, not whatever this was. It is glitching, it's glitching. Do you see? You and me, we're smart. We can see it. We can see the code. We can see it glitching. It's glitching, do you see? She looked at my face, at the fear in my eyes at seeing my sister like this. She gently swept a rogue tear from my cheek. You okay, Emma? I let out a sob and turned my head away for a fraction of an instant. In that moment, Jenny sat at the table. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it and ate it and ate it and... The air around me seemed fuzzy, wrong. I turned to the open door outside, the snow glittered underneath the setting sun. Arya walked over to me and I picked her up, crying into her fur. Without a warning, she hissed and bit me, squirming in my arms. I jerked and dropped her, only to see 4 identical cats on the carpet, backs arched and faces contorted in snarls. I ran for the door, shaking. The second I was outside, my head cleared and I slammed the door. Behind me, there was only a dull crunch as the door met resistance. I turned slowly, fighting a rising nausea. Black and white fur was caught between the heavy metal door and the door frame. It was supposed to automatically close, and even now, the door was straining to close fully while my poor kitty cried. I screamed and opened the door, letting the cat fall to the ground. There was blood, but I didn't know where it was coming from. Her ribs seemed so wrong, and her legs were twitching even as I saw her jerk in pain with every movement. I picked up her broken body, cradling it. Jenny ran to me, staring at the cat in my hands. What the fuck did you do? Why did you kill her? She seemed in shock, mouth agape and face pale. I didn't. She's not dead. We can save her, we just have to, we have to set the ribs, I think. I touched the broken mass of a body and the kitty yelped in pain. I sobbed, and the movement made her cry even harder. Oh God, oh God, oh God, Jenny, what do we do? Please. I held out the cat, whose breathing turned raspy and yet disgustingly wet. Jenny took a step back, turned her head and vomited on the stairs before our house. On the previously pristine snow I cried harder, tears streaming down my face. I fought the urge to throw up on the cat. Everything seemed hazy. I only remember the cat being gently taken from my arms, and a sickening crunch as I stepped on a branch in the driveway which sounded too similar to the snap of Arya's spine. I hope I didn't step on her. There were tufts of fur in my shoelaces later. Mom and Dad, oh God, I'm going to tell them. How you fucking put her between the door before you slammed it. I saw you, you fucking psychopath. Jenny was screaming now, but all I could think of was that I was so glad that she hadn't reverted to the thing she had been before. I put a finger on her hand and she flinched. Jenny, I didn't, I swear I didn't. It was following me and I ran and it got caught and I didn't mean to. And we cried together. Before burying the body in the backyard and crafting a painfully small wooden cross to mark the lonely grave. There was no eulogy, only a sullen silence and a ring of small footsteps around the grave. I didn't have to ask Jenny to know that she saw them, but she didn't dare talk about it. I didn't go to school. For an entire week, I stayed in my room, shaking at every sound of footsteps. Mom and Dad seemed absent. I didn't know whether it was just my imagination, or if they actually stopped coming home. The days bled together, monotony spreading through my life like a cancer. No one answered my texts, no one picked up their phone. I was alone. It must have been spring, but the calendar was always open to the end of February, and every so often when I looked at them in my peripheral vision, the trees seemed to be covered in a dusting of snow. It was Saturday when I decided to walk outside, an early evening, the air warm and the world humming with expectation. The sun was still up, but as I stared at the cloudless sky, it twitched from side to side ever so often. I decided to lower my gaze, staring instead at the still green grass covering our backyard. I squatted down to run my hands through it, rolling each strand between my finger and my thumb, heavy dew making the strands bend like hunchbacks. For a second, it seemed like I was holding human hair, long and blonde in my palm, and I felt it all over me, inside of me. I jerked up. I turned my head, coughing and retching up a tangled mass. There was a clip in the shape of a ladybug attached to one of the strands, and faint screaming in the background. I shook my head. I knew I couldn't stay inside forever, but all of this, it seemed so wrong. There was nobody outside, none of the little kids running around shouting. All of the houses on my street had their curtains closed and blinds shut. I shut off the fear, the overwhelming feeling of wrongness in the air. Breathing evenly, I knocked on the neighbor's house. Some part of me, the cowering little girl inside, wished that no one would answer, so that I could just run back into my room and shut the world out. But there a rustling in the curtains, and footsteps behind the door. It creaked open ever so slightly, and I took an involuntary step back. It had been days since I had last interacted with someone outside of my immediate family. The woman inside, Mrs. Bailey, didn't step out. "Hi, I'm sorry, I was just wondering whether something's wrong. It seemed like everyone's hiding." I mean, it's stupid, but I started, only for the door to slam shut. Her voice was a gravelly whisper, and I barely caught the words. "Don't ask any more. The foot glitch. They won't tell you, only, awake." Her voice switched suddenly, as if a button was clicked, and it seemed normal then, maybe even too cheery. "Go away now, then. I have dinner to prepare." "Wait, Mrs. Bailey, do you also see the snow?" "Go away now, then. I have dinner to prepare." And so I did. I went away, because Mrs. Bailey had dinner to prepare. And even when I considered walking to the other houses, or just walking out. Anywhere where there wasn't snow and neighbors with closed curtains and older sisters who took out a slice of pineapple and ate it and took out a slice of pineapple and ate it took out a slice of pineapple and ate it and took out a slice of pineapple and ate sit and ate. I wondered how long it had been. How long I had stayed in my house. The food never ran out, and the school didn't ring, and my friends didn't send me worried messages. And yet, I didn't want to go outside. The thought repelled me, just the mere idea of opening the front door and walking outside made me want to vomit. I don't know what day it was, then, that I walked downstairs and saw Jenny curled up on the living room carpet. She had her knees pressed firmly to her chest, her head buried between them, and was rocking back and forth, weeping quietly. I approached her hesitantly, because I had never forgotten the look in her eyes when she told me that it was glitching. Some days, I could see her stand outside my bedroom door, her form breaking the steady stream of light coming from the hallway into my room, still and quiet with a bowed head. Those days, I usually just ignored her, pretending I couldn't see her shoulders shake and her fingers claw at her long, straggly hair. And in the morning, I pretended I couldn't see her broken fingernails or the small bald spots she always tried to comb a thin layer of hair over. But today, when I saw her on the ground, I couldn't ignore it. However, it terrified me, the way Jenny was acting. She was my older sister. It wouldn't be right, I suppose. I don't know whether it's callous, but the main reason I helped Jenny was that I feared I would become a bad human being if I didn't. At this point, I don't really care. I approached her quietly, as one might do with an injured animal. Slowly, I extended a hand out to her, and brushed my fingers over her shoulder. It felt hard, as if everything but the bones had disappeared from underneath her clothes. She whipped her head around so quickly her neck cracked, and I jumped back. She looked like Jenny, but it's as if someone had taken out everything inside. She looked hollow, and I worried that just touching her again might make her collapse. I thought about how long it had been since I last saw her, but I couldn't remember. Every day was the same, except sometimes Jenny was downstairs and other times she wasn't. My hand flew to my mouth as she reached an emaciated hand out to me. Her cheeks had sunken in and her eyes were empty, mirrors and pools, swimming with tears, nothing underneath. I took her hand, rubbing the cracked skin with my thumb. "Hey, Jenny, you okay? I love you, you look so sick. When's the last time you've eaten?" "Oh, Jen, we've got to go to a hospital," I whispered to her as I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her frail body. She shook in my embrace, and I loosened my grip, for fear that it'll snap her frail bones if I love her too much. Just for a second, I felt that I was holding the too heavy body of Arya, and I jerked back, pulling her along with me. We stumbled on the carpet and fell down together, my hands still locked around her frail body. I closed my eyes in hopes of shutting out the sickening crunch and covered my ears so I couldn't see her tiny body hit the floor. Except the sickening crunch was a tree branch and my hands were locked around her, and she was the older sister. My sister was older and had a pineapple in her hand, except there was a sickening crunch. And she sat before me, on the carpet. She had an arched back, just like Arya had when I dropped her, except she was weeping rather than snarling. I had let go of her, I suppose. And there, in her arms, cradled like a baby and swathed in fabric which looked like my mom's favorite scarf, a gun. Shit! I scrambled back. Jenny, what are you doing? How did you didn't have a gun? What the fuck is happening? Shit! She convulsed for a second, shaking and bending over to vomit nothing onto the carpeted floor for a second. Then, she lifted up her head and cocked it to the side, breathing rapidly. "Emma, you have to fucking kill me." I choked and my hands flew over my mouth. Somehow, the fact that she swore shocked me just as much as her request. I had never heard Jenny swear before, except for when Arya, except then. "Emma, please, the gun." I took it from her quickly, not because I wanted to shoot her, but because I was terrified she would do it herself. Her fingers brushed the trigger with a moth-like touch, adoringly, lovingly. I stood up, but then immediately sat back down, my legs shaking and weak. Jenny, I'm not going to kill you, yet? I'm not going to kill you, Jenny. I won't shoot you. I repeated it, and even in my head I had a constant anthem of don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot. As if I was worried that I would absent-mindedly murder my sister. Why not? She stood up then, with confidence that I didn't expect. Her eyes stared over me, around me, under me. Where's Mom and Dad, Emma? Where? You know where? I shook my head. She said the last question with the same tone I had heard her use on the students she tutored, a simpering, borderline patronizing tone that usually made me roll my eyes or throw a sly middle finger in her direction. Somehow, though, although she looked frail and weak, I felt compelled to listen to her. You know where? They're here. They're in the house, in the basement. I shot them, and it was loud, and I know you heard it, but you stayed in your goddamn room like always. I shot them, because they begged me to, you understand? They begged me, and I did it. Because I'm not a fucking coward like you. She spit at my feet, and I watched the trail of saliva from her chapped lips to my blue socks with butterflies on them. I wrapped my arms around myself, dry heaving and weeping at the same time. When I looked up, she was still staring at me, head cocked and saliva slowly dripping from her chin to the floor. Why did you kill them? I whispered. Because that's the only way to get out. And with that, she took my hands in her skinny fingers and pushed the gun into her chest. Do it. Do it, Emma. She looked outside, her eyes wide. It's snowing again. I think I like it more when it's snowing. I tried to pry my hands away from hers, but she seemed stronger than she usually did, even as she shook with fear. I wish it wasn't true, but the only thought running through my head was that I didn't want to be alone. I couldn't be alone. She couldn't be so selfish as to leave me trapped here. I can't. I can't do it, Jen. I love you so much. I was crying, but my hands were steady as I pried the gun away from her. If you loved me, you'd do this. You see that I'm suffering. I can't. They're in my head and don't, it's glitching, don't do it, but I can't hold them off any longer, and every day is just the same day in hell. And I'd rather die, so please. She shrieked and grabbed her head. Why can't you do it yourself? Don't you think I fucking tried? Something stops me from pulling the trigger. Emma, please, please, I love you so much. She clawed at her head and convulsed, alternating between reaching for my hand and pulling away from me. My finger brushed the trigger, tantalizingly, slowly, a lover stroking their partner's hand, a gust of wind like a butterfly kiss. It occurred to me, then. And I ran for my room and locked myself inside, pulling the curtains shut over the picturesque winter landscape, locking the door. I could hear her breathing and moaning behind it. I sunk to the floor, burying my head inside my knees. The gun was still in my hands. And my sister I didn't know. Because there was something inside of her. Something that made her want to kill herself, and something that wanted to stop it. Except, for the love of God, I can't figure out which is my sister. And if I kill Jenny, if I kill her, then I'm alone. If I don't, then she's here with me. And I don't know which idea terrifies me more. It's still glitching, everything. My phone works, but no one ever replies. There's no one, no one. There's no date, no time. The clock hands spin and stop and spin, and I can still hear her moaning and breathing behind my door. Voices whisper to me. I had to try to write this, even though there's no one out there. No one, there's no one. There's a circle of footsteps in the snow below the house, and every morning I wake up with the curtains open when I closed them the night before. Please, if anyone knows what's happening, help me. Help my sister. I'm terrified, both of her and of what's happening. I'm 13. I don't remember where I go to school. My house doesn't have an address anymore. If you hear the footsteps, it's glitching for you too. Follow them, find me. Help me. Please. Help me, it's glitching, and I can hear her screaming. And the sun is gone, it's gone, the world is snow and footsteps. And I'm 13, I'm Jenny, she's dead, I'll shoot her, I will end. She's popped open the lid of a fruit salad and it's spilled out on the virgin snow, the snow end. I'm 13, I'm Jenny, she's dead, I'll shoot her, I will end. Help me please, it's glitching and I'm dead. Author's note. 2 days ago, I found this journal at home while cleaning out the attic. Neither me nor my family have ever seen it before, but out of curiosity, I read the whole thing. The date inscribed in it is May 24, 2019. Last night, a circle of footsteps appeared in my front yard, the shadows of the imprint bleeding into the snow. And I think when I hear them, I should follow.
So, let me get this straight. This whole story, the whole sentence, the repeating, the crazy stuff, all happened on this one document, book, in your attic that you found. And, again, it's spooky to put it on there. But the fact of the matter is, you see footsteps and bleed right after you read that. One of two things. It's again like all horror stories. You fucking move out of the house or go find somewhere else to go. Secondly, if it's like a mental thing, obviously you need to go get that looked at. But otherwise, it's so cryptic, I feel like the story kind of loses itself. You know, like I'm saying, if this is a fictional written story, there's no like truth behind it or anything. Like, bravo on the creativity of it, because it's so fucking random. But holy shit. It might be just a bit too random to fully understand. So realistically, for that story, I don't know. I can't really make anything out of it. I wanted to sit through it because it sounded interesting as it progressed, because I didn't know where it was going with it. But realistically, I don't know, man. It just sounds like someone's a crazy person writing in a journal. Anyway, the next story we got here is called My Name is Jack and I Hunt Crips. The night she left. So let's look into this right now. And this is also by author JoJo. It's posted an hour ago. Anyway, here we go.
It's been a while, longer than I expected. I've wanted to come forward once more and talk about the hunts I've been on and the things I've learned. Truth be told, I don't think I'm ready yet to dive into the details. All I can do right now is sit and think about the pieces I've gathered that belong to a puzzle I've yet to make sense of. Rest assured, I'm out there, taking care of the dirty work. If something needs to be hunted, I will hunt it. I thought at the very least, after all this time, I could come forward and talk briefly about what I did after I last left you. I'd also like to share something intimate with you. If my suspicions about the ever-evolving world around me are correct, I want you to know why I do this. I'm sure enough of you have figured out that in my previous life I was married. There are switches that are flipped in everyone's life that can define the path we take. The switch that led me to this job was the night I lost my wife. But before I dive into that, just a quick update on how I've been since my last encounter with Iris. That's what I've come to call the being I previously referred to as the Purple Man, it sounds less hokey. When I left you I discussed that I was going to take a break, and while that was true I had some things to take care of before doing so. First and foremost was to ride back to the incident site to make sure nothing too damning was left behind. Not surprisingly, there wasn't a body to be seen. Even the jobbins that lured in Bigfoot had since dispersed, which is admittedly unlike their behavior. I've seen a number of people who followed along with my experiences who voiced their concern that Iris might have survived. I can't comment on that one way or the other, but returning to the scene it was clear he fought back. Clumps of brown fur were stuck to surrounding trees. I'm not sure if he's out there, but it's hard to imagine that if he made it out alive that he'd be in very good shape. Upon returning to the scene I cleaned up what I could and headed out from there to speak with any local hunters I could find. Anyone who would listen agreed they would keep their eye out for Iris and get a hold of me if anything was spotted. So far nothing has come up. A few false flags that might have been misinterpreted sightings of beasts like the Mile Wolf, West Blend bears, or even Dogman, something of an apex himself. With the word spread as far as I could get it, I brought Elvis into the shop and handed a great deal of money to the mechanic. Sorted my affairs and then bought the plane tickets to, well, let's say somewhere warm. Funny how you can go your whole life without seeing a cryptid, but when you start noticing them it's hard to stop. While I was on my vacation trying my damn best to actually relax, I couldn't help but spot things. The type of stuff I would normally use to track a cryptid, like bizarre tracks lining the beaches or the soft hum coming from the water. I managed to get through my trip without intervening too much. Most of the cryptids that I assumed were there, were typically harmless. The hum, however, was something I needed to step in and handle. I'm not too well versed on the aquatic ones as there are not many in my hunting radius, but the hum was something any hunter is familiar with. I was staying in a location by the beach, so when the night was silent and the crickets were tempered, you could hear the hum. It sounds like a disk whirring up in your computer, a constant and flat noise. The danger comes when you don't hear it. If the hum is there and you pick up on it, then your brain distinguishes it as something that is just noise. When you don't hear it, however, similar to the jobbin's call, it can affect your waking process. There is something referred to as the call of the void. It's a moment in our brain that emphasizes intrusive thoughts. For example, if you were at the top of a tall building and you looked down, your brain might create an urge to jump. The feeling is fleeting, and because it's so swiftly dismissed you can refuse the urge. Within the hum, when it isn't being consciously perceived, it creates this effect and locks it so you can't dismiss it. So if you're standing on the beach looking out at a vast dangerous sea and this call of the void is created, you will advance towards the sea. It was something I needed to take care of, or at least that's how I saw it. It's entirely possible there was a hunter local to that area, but I didn't know for sure. So taking it upon myself, I waited for the night to swallow the sky with my supplies the third night on vacation. When it arrived, I left my hotel and trotted down to the beach with the trap in hand. As I got closer to the water, the hum began to be muffled out by the water rushing to the beach, and I did my best to focus on the hum. When the shivering water had reached to my knees, I placed a styrofoam cooler into the water. With a small tap, I watched the cooler drift further and further away from me as it was directed by the waves. Within the cooler, I had placed a few pounds of spoiled fish. The stench of the fish would be enough to be picked up by aquatic life with a strong sense of smell. I wasn't going to get the chance to see her, which was a shame. I've never seen one in person. The nereid is a very important part of the ecosystem, and the hum it emits is typically only meant to lure fish in. Unfortunately, the population of nereids has gotten so low that sometimes you'll find one without a pack that travels too far inland. That's when they become hazardous to humans. The cooler would float out until the nereid located it. She'd rip through the styrofoam and gobble down the fish. Stuffed inside the fish are small glass beads that contain just enough sulfuric acid to burn the nereid's insides. I normally try to find the most humane way to kill a cryptid if I have to, but as I said, aquatics aren't exactly my forte. It would only take a few minutes before the acid ate enough of her insides and she'd die moments later. Once the cooler was dragged under the water's surface, I waited for all traces of the hum to be extinguished. The vacation went smoothly after that, and the nights were a little more silent, and once a dozen of those nights had passed by, my time off was done. My body was rested, the bruises I suffered had cleared and the wounds I had suffered had closed. The whole plane ride back home I couldn't help but wonder what was waiting for me. I had pictured a dizzying number of messages left on my answering machine. I wondered if anyone had sighted Iris. When I returned, however, the cabin was still and the air was unsullied, like it had been frozen in time awaiting my return. I went a few rounds with the punching bag to prepare my body for the work ahead. Even if no one had attempted to contact me, there would no doubt be a plethora of inquiries waiting for me. I'd been gone for 2 weeks. Even when one hunter takes some time off, it creates a deficit. The balance between the numbers of hunters and cryptids is fragile. If you recall, after my hunt of Iris I had to bleed myself of the Salem child's blood. Well, that process is still ongoing. There is less of it now, but it's taking longer than expected. I'm not completely positive, but it's almost as if my blood is acclimating and reproducing the blood of the Salem child. I can't really feel the burning in my veins anymore, but on a dark enough night, there's a faint glow running through me. So that's something I'll need to research, but other than that, upon my return to the cabin everything was peaceful. The days that followed initially seemed pretty routine, but as I went on, the tunnel vision I've had up to this point started to fade. My body and my soul had a moment to rest, and with this vigor, I was able to start seeing a bigger picture. There's something more, an underlying factor of hunting cryptids that I don't have a complete understanding of yet, but I'm getting close. Until I have something more concrete to bring to you, I'm going to leave you with this. Since it happened, many nights have passed, the days turned into months until they gave birth to years. Some nights I can't recall the date, but other nights the numbers etch into my head like an itch I can't scratch. I had just gotten out of a match. It was a match I won, but if you were to look at me you would think otherwise. She picked me up in her truck. It was a much nicer one than what I'm driving around now. She was far too kind for me. I'd come limping out of the building with the scraps I earned as prize money clutched in my hands. Leaving the truck, Elise let me rest my weight on her as she swung the passenger side door open and helped me inside. I remember how it felt to rest my head on the seat, the cool leather pressing against thin runs of drying blood. We didn't say much. She climbed inside and started the drive home. It turns out I was as good as fighting outside of the ring as I was when I was in it. It was a conversation we had a million times before. We were both going over it in our heads as the lights of the truck led us home. She wanted to turn to me and say, "You need to stop being so reckless." It would be futile. I would have just responded with the same run around about how it was my body and that I could take it. I don't even think that was true. I couldn't see myself the way she did in those days. Looking back on it, I wish I would have listened. Maybe then I would have been driving that night. Whenever I stepped in the ring I would hear the crowd chanting my nickname, the rally they called me. Every match, just when you thought I couldn't take any more punishment, I would come off the ropes and I would explode. She hated that I would let myself get beat down every night just for the sake of winning. I thought I was invincible back then. I'd get up in the morning and stare at the wounds I received in the ring like they were badges of honor. I was apex. After the matches though, I would have to do mental gymnastics to convince myself that I would even wake up the next day. She did too. I asked her to marry me years before, back when I had Grace and Sutley both in the ring and out. I don't remember when I stopped being that guy, but she put up with me far longer than she had to. Thank you for that. The road we took home is more familiar to me now than it could have ever been back in those days. The long stretch of smooth and hardly touched black pavement that cut through the forest, trees reaching out into the road as if they were trying to reclaim it. Even the moon had its trouble piercing through the thicket. I wonder of the sorts of beasts that watched our truck cut through the still night with malintent. It could have been any of them. My eyes were glued watching the tree line zipping by us, but I could faintly see Elise's reflection in the window. She was leaning forward and it looked like her eyes were squinting. "Jack, do you see that?" she whispered. Her thoughts had pushed past the fight that was brewing under our townges. With a sharp sting that radiated through my body, I did my best to sit up so I could see clearly out the windshield. My eyes were naturally drawn to the beam of the headlights, but with Elise's direction, I looked to the distance. Down the road and through the canopy of trees I could see two red orbs hanging side by side. They rested near what would be the top of the trees. It looked like something was perched and watching our truck. "Brake lights," I positioned, thinking that possibly the road elevated further on and there was another car ahead of us. Even I didn't believe the words as they slipped through my busted lips. I don't think there was a loud clack, like erasers smacking together, and her words were cut short as her foot lifted from the gas and slammed down on the brakes. As I started leaning forward from the sudden stop, I could feel her arm press against my chest. Her and the seatbelt worked together to keep me in my seat as the tires screeched on the blacktop, nails on a chalkboard. The truck continued to skid across the road for several feet before eventually slowing and stopping. The contents of that truck had been thrown around and the air was thick with the smell of burnt rubber. We were both breathing heavily. "You okay?" Elise managed to muffle out through gaping breath. Not the one to fall for my macho act, she reached over before I even responded to unbuckle my seat belt. She lifted her hands to my face, soft and gentle hands. With a grasp on my face she swiveled my neck slowly. "Does that hurt?" "Not any more than it did before," I replied with my body becoming calmer. I had taken a mean right hook that I thought was going to spin my head completely around. Donnie Anderson, that guy had a devastating right hook, wasn't even his dominant hand. The warmth of her hand dissipated as she released her grip with a sigh. "Thank God, I'm sorry something just..." She cut herself off with quick and jarring movements like an intrusive memory pushed itself to the front of her head. With a bobbing head, she looked out the windshield and then quickly turned to look out the back window. She must have caught the confusion on my face when she turned back to the front. "Something just fell onto the road, stay here," she demanded as she slipped her seatbelt loose. Without protest I watched her flee from the truck. The engine hummed as she paced around the truck. I didn't think anything of it. Maybe a deer had run by or a bird had just dropped onto the road in front of us. During the abrupt stop, the tires had lost their traction and so the truck began to pivot on the road. Where it rested, the headlights were beaming into the forest with the truck practically blocking both lanes. Sitting up straight I focused on the forest, looking as far as I could through the trees, expecting some critter to be looking back. I saw something shift through the trees, moving slow and quiet towards the road. It was like a predator hunting its prey. The headlights only caught small glints of it, so I couldn't make it out no matter how hard I focused. "Holy shit!" Elise exclaimed just as my mouth started moving, just before I was going to shout for her to return to the truck. The interruption was enough to momentarily stifle what I had just seen, and I moved in my seat to see what she was seeing. Rolling down the window I peeked my head out towards her. I was half right, on the ground was a buck, a damn big one. I wasn't much of a hunter in those days, but any hunter would have wanted to display it as a trophy. A buck that big, one I didn't think could even fit in our truck bed, had been completely devastated. All over its amber body were deep cuts and gaping wounds that barely contained what was left of its organs. The blood hadn't just pooled onto the ground, it was splattered, like a water balloon busting on the sidewalk. Something that looked like it easily weighed over 500 pounds had been thrown onto the road, and even worse, at us. "Elise, get back in the truck!" I practically shouted, but she was already backing away from the buck. When she turned to run, she froze in her tracks, and in response I heard a huff from the other side of the truck. It sounded like a horse that was preparing to throw its rider. I slowly shifted my gaze to the driver's side window. What little light I was offered cascaded onto the hunched predator I had briefly seen in the woods. Neither of us had any idea what we were looking at, what I now know as the Cloud Walker. They are terribly predatory creatures. Looking out the window, I could see its head, the shape of a dog's skull that was slim and veiled in pale skin. It stepped towards Elise ever so slightly, its limbs clicking against the road. The arms and legs resembled the wings of a bat in how they articulated to facilitate its movements. It was like someone took a dog's body and began switching out its parts. The limbs even had loose skin where they bent. She was afraid, as was I. The Cloud Walker halted, its advanced and buckled backward, its limbs closing like a clamp. I shot a worried glance to Elise before the Cloud Walker barreled forward, its body springing to life like a piston. In an instant, the blur of it had crashed down on Elise, who barely had the time to scream. Instinct and terror kicked in, and even though my body was battered and the thing seemed to operate like a tuned machine, I started to leave the truck. As the door swung open, the Cloud Walker's attention instantly shifted to me. Head turning like an owl, it kept a gaze focused on me, and the hooked ends of its limbs pinned Elise to the ground. Our eyes met, me and Cloud Walker engage in a staring contest. Its eyes were deep and sunken but glinted blue under the moonlight. I recalled that people believe cats stare at us as an attempt to prove dominance. Whether or not that's true for cats, it's true for Cloud Walkers. The fangs that protruded from its shut mouth like the extinct Smilodon, were dripping small drops of Elise blood. With all the hits my face has taken that night, my eyes were pained and swollen. I could only faintly hear the cries of Elise. In such a short time she had been battered more than any night I had in the ring. The feeling that if I blinked, I lost, felt as if it was washing over me until every other sensation was numb. The night was still, and I was locked into the gaze of some animal I had never heard about, one that orchestrated a way to catch us, its prey. After all my nights in the ring, all the battles I won, I was apex. I wasn't about to lose something as stupid as a staring contest. I was invincible. Then, just for a moment, my vision went black. By the time my eyelids opened again, the thing had already turned away from me. It raised its arm into the air, and before the plea could escape my lips, it brought it down. The movement was quick and precise. The Cloud Walker doesn't have much muscle mass per SE, but it still performs incredibly powerful movements. Its entire body acts like a spring. It rests and contorts to build up energy, and when needed it fires off. While it can't slowly lift a heavy animal, it can let the energy it built up explode and throw the said animal into the road. Her pleas were gone, and it turned attention to me, but this time it had no intent on seeing what kind of prey I was. Before its body moved enough that I would be able to see what had become of Elise, I turned away and retreated into the truck. The door slammed shut, and behind me, I had the Cloud Walker leap off the ground. The Cloud Walker gets its name from its ability to glide, using the intense momentum created by its leaps and the loose skin webbed between the bends of its limbs. It can soar impressive distances, making it very difficult for its prey to escape, and to a Cloud Walker, anything is prey. The truck shook as it landed on the hood, bending the metal upon impact. Like it was trying to challenge me, the Cloud Walker began pounding on the hood. Maybe challenge isn't the right word, I've seen muscle heads trying to challenge people. No, the Cloud Walker was toying with me. Its every impact shook the truck. Cloud Walkers are incredibly pale, another reason for their name, but the ends of their appendages are covered in rough green scales that act like punching gloves, absorbing the shock of its sudden impacts. Each impact was met with a huff, each impact tore the hood into bits. The headlights started to flicker under the assault. The Cloud Walker's hooks pressed deeper and deeper into the hood as its rampage went on, and with the flickering lights I could see thin layers of liquid begin to cover the scales. Looking down at the cigarette lighter, I felt gears starting to turn in my head. I began to make a huffing noise like the Cloud Walker and pushed the lighter in. The predator has very sensitive ears that, fortunately, picked up on my mockery of it. This sent it into a fit, digging away the front of the truck and cracking the windshield that separated us. It wasn't looking at me, but I was watching it. Unflinching and without blinking, I watched the clear liquid rising up from the impacts and covering its skin. When the lights finally gave out, I pushed the door open and grabbed the warm plastic knob of the lighter. Leaving the car, I turned towards the cryptid, and with everything my lungs could afford, I howled at it. Like before, it bent back and I watched firsthand as it blurred and lunged at me. It felt like a car had sideswiped me and I had been tossed across the road, my back smacking the pavement hard enough to crack my spine. But it was already done. As soon as it collided into me, the light was pressed against its thin layer of skin. A plume of blue and orange flame moved across its body like a shock wave scorching the earth. Huffs turned into howls as it retched back and threw its limbs around without any knowledge on how to extinguish them. The whole body trembling and skin burning around the flames licked the intricate mechanisms inside. It reeled back and attempted to jump away, but something must have snapped during the attempt, and like the buck, it crashed back onto the road. With the fires that ate away at it, the road was illuminated. I could see her lying still in the middle of the road. My body was totaled from the Cloud Walker's impact, and as it crawled across the road, so did I. Her hand, at her very last moments, she was reaching out to me. Fist clenched, I dragged myself closer to her, finally allowing the tears to well up. The cool drops fell onto my beaten down hands and carried the red off the surface. Finally reaching her, all I could manage to do was rest my head on her stomach. Part of me was hoping I could feel it rise. That there was some sign of life left in her. The feeling of wetness that adorned the side of my face was enough, though. There was nothing left for her to give. She was gone. As I reached the pits of my sorrow, I was enveloped by an intense light and two heavy thuds of car doors slamming shut. "Help him up!" I heard. An old grizzled voice commanded, and then I felt hands grab my arms, and despite my meager resistance, I was pulled to my feet. Standing on my own was a great deal of difficulty, but the gentleman that appeared helped steady me. The lights of the car they left from shrouded their features, but the two of them were imposing and well dressed. "First off, I'm sorry." The older man spoke again. The one holding me began leading me to the car, and I was far too exhausted in every regard to fight back. "But goddamn, did you kill that sucker?" He chuckled. I could see him looking over the Cloud Walker's corpse as the flames died out. "Tell you what, Deacon, why don't you clean this mess up?" The older gentleman gestured to the truck and the Cloud Walker. "I'll take him." I turned to the one referred to as Deacon. The lights from the car now revealed his features. He had a sharp face and deep yellow eyes. His hair was ruffled under the wide and flat brim of his hat. The pale tones of his face wrinkled. "Be careful out there, Jack," he whispered as he opened the door and ushered me into the passenger's seat before returning to the older gentleman's side. Resting my head back, I felt the cool leather press against the thin streaks of drying blood that ran through my hair. I watched for a while as the two men conversed, the closed windows muffled their voices. Deacon looked back at me a number of times, each time the yellow of his eyes were more and more piercing. After several minutes had passed, the older man finally turned towards me and began walking towards the car. His face was aged, each wrinkle looked like it had a story behind it, a geographical roadmap of his life painted on his face. His eyes somehow managed to be soft, betraying the gruff and commanding voice. His suit, all black, seemed to suck in the light around it, and before I knew it he was climbing into the driver's seat. So he spoke. "This ain't going to be easy, boy." A sigh penetrated his lips and he turned the keys until the engine kicked in. "You got somewhere secluded to go for a while?" His question carried the notion of a requirement. I nodded and told him about the cabin my dad owned. I used to go up there with him as a kid and watch him hunt, get drunk, and if I was lucky, not take his frustrations out on me. He pressed on the gas as if to acknowledge me. "Deacon is going to take care of everything. He cleared his throat as if trying to soften his tone. He'll bring your girl to the cabin, you can rest her there." Bury her, he meant, I could bury her there. The directions I needed to give were minimal, and within the hour the car's headlights were pressing onto the old cabin. I hadn't been there since I was a kid, but not a thing looked to be out of place. "You okay to stand on your own?" he asked, and I nodded. My body still ached something awful, but I pushed through and pulled myself from the car. I can't explain what I went along with everything they said. Part of it was the shock, and maybe I just didn't think I had it in me to say no. I was submissive and confused. "I'll dig a grave, FO." "I'll dig it," I interrupted. And with a solemn gesture, we walked towards the backyard where the shovel still rested against the cabin. Muscles aching, I dug away at the dirt. Unthinking and unsure, I reached deeper and deeper. The old man seemed restless but refused to leave. "Not many people could do what you did, killin' that thing and all. We call them cloud walkers." I stopped digging to focus on him. I asked him who he is. The conversation carried through until my digging was complete. He told me he ran a group of people who hunted things like what killed my wife. "We're currently recruiting, there's a war and we're losing." "You felt that loss tonight?" Another car pulled up and flooded the backyard with light before I was able to question him further. Deacon had found his way. I didn't remember the older man ever calling Deacon, so I was confused how he got there, but he did as he was told, cleaned up and brought my wife. It was crude and simple, but it was better than I expected. A wooden box housed every bit of love I had. The three of us lifted it and gently lowered it into the earth. Deacon helped me fill the grave back up and shot me one more glance. "Be nimble," he spoke before walking away and getting in his car. The old man rose from the stump he had rested on and stepped in front of me. "What happened to your girl?" "Happens far too often." He spoke, the soft demeanor in his voice was gone and the impact returned. "Cloud walkers are no joke." His hand lifted and reached into the front of his suit. "If you need a job, I can help." Simple stuff. He looked into my eyes like he was trying to read me. "Just cleaning up roadkill, till death stops shaking you." Reaching out, his hand was clasping a small business card. "And either way we'll get you a new truck." When I took the card and failed to give a reply, he turned around and started walking back to the plumes of light. "Oh!" he suddenly gasped and spun to face me. "What's your name, boy?" Jack Isaacs." I stuttered out. Well, Jack Isaacs, I hope I hear from you again." His cadence was aloof, like all tension in the air had wisped away. Then, I was alone, standing in the backyard behind the cabin, the very same cabin I sit in now writing this. The very same backyard my wife and the Salem child rest in. After he left, I sulked for a while. A few weeks. He was true to his word. Within days I woke up to a horror movie flatbed sitting in my driveway. On the dashboard rested Elise's ring. It must have fallen off during the attack, and with everything going on I just didn't notice. She was resting for so long and I didn't want to disturb her, so I fashioned a chain, and now, she rests by my heart always. When I finally got around to calling the number on the card, everything fell into place. The job, the roadkill, I set up in freezer and eventually went on my first hunt, but that's a story for another time. So there it is, one night can flip a switch you didn't know you even had, and your life becomes something new. I miss her every day, and if she hated the danger I put myself in when I boxed, oh boy, she'd be livid about this job. I know she'd be proud of me though, she always was. There was always something in her eyes when she looked at me like I was a legend. That's where I have to leave you for now. I promise I'm not leaving you to the wolves of the night. I and those like me will be out there. We'll be making sure that people can convince themselves that what they're reading is just another fairy tale. When I get more information and when I have something substantial to bring you, y'all will hear from me again. Keep hunting, Jack Isaacs.
Holy shit. Now, if this is a crazy person and they're like, thinking this is actually real, okay, so be it. Or if it is real, even crazier. But if they aren't and they're just writing this as a story, they need to have their own book series. Because, oh my god, I would 100% listen to an audiobook or read through a whole book if I had the time of this, story. Holy shit. It was long, give or take, but, I feel like there could be way more written in there, depth-wise. And it sounded like this was a part of a series, so dear God, if I could, I would love to hear the whole series. We'll have to look into it as a separate thing. But yeah, so this next one goes under sexual violence, so just fair warning if you're prone to sexual stuff and annoyed by it or affected by it. Don't fucking stay for this next story. Come back when the story's over. Or if it's still playing. But yeah, anyway. So go back to the other one. Amazing story. I would love to see an illustration of the so-called night clam, or a picture if it's that actually real of the dead body. But yeah. Anyway. So like I said, the new story we got coming up here is my ex-girlfriend has invited me to her family's church once. It wasn't a church by O. Mary Captain 18.1. Here we go.
So just to preface, I'll fill you in on a little bit of background information. This happened to me the summer after I graduated from high school. I was 17 at the time. I'm one of those people born in late July who graduated before turning 18. And I'd been spending a lot of time at a local karaoke cafe. You know, one of those places where people get drunk before going up on stage with a group of friends and belting Take On Me or some shit at the top of their lungs. It was kind of a tacky place. It used to be this little mom and pop's Philly cheesesteak restaurant, but had recently been bought out, refurbished, and installed with a pretty extensive sound system. But the new owners didn't bother to get new flooring or deep clean the walls, and it usually smelled pretty bad in there. I wouldn't have spent as much time there as I did, but I met someone who made me feel like I wanted to be there. The first time I saw her, I was sitting alone at the back of the restaurant. They had a couple rows of fold-up chairs for anyone who wanted to be there exclusively for the music, as long as they were willing to pay a little entrance fee. I was perfectly fine with that because the food kind of sucked and I was just there to pass time, since there really wasn't much of anything else to do in my town. It didn't take long before I noticed this girl sitting at one of the round tables with a group of her friends. She had long blonde hair, it was full and voluptuous, albeit a little frizzy. It looked like she'd probably been out driving with the windows rolled down or maybe working out. She had bangs too. I didn't know too many girls with bangs. Her friends looked like many of the other girls in my town, though, I could see that one of them was wearing a t-shirt that said Simmer on it, which was the name of a youth retreat that one of the local churches went on every summer. And some of the others were dressed rather prudishly with long cotton skirts and the classic church girl cardigan. Not that I had any problem with these kinds of girls, but they didn't typically gravitate towards me due to my sexuality. That's why it was so surprising when the blonde girl with bangs came over and sat right next to me after her friends had gone to the bathroom. And it wasn't with a look of judgment or concern. If anything, it was a look of intrigue and maybe even something more. "Hey," she said. "Hey. My name's Ashlyn. What's yours?" "Samantha." "Cool." She folded her arms around her knees and fixed her eyes on the people dancing around on stage. Then she giggled and turned her body around to face me. "You're gay, aren't you?" My whole face turned red. I didn't know what to say. Was she asking so she could tell me I was living in sin? Or maybe use this as an opportunity to invite me to church? I wasn't sure, but I wasn't a fan of lying. "Yet, I am." "I figured as much," she teased. This is the part where I was expecting her to hand me an ABCs of Salvation pamphlet or strike up a conversation about why homosexuality is wrong. But her eyes suddenly grew wide and she held her head down low. "Me too." I felt my heart skip a beat. "Really?" I asked. "Yet. But I've been too scared to tell anyone. My parents would kill me. They think it's wrong. So do my friends. And I guess I just think, well, what's the use? Maybe I should just keep it under wraps." I really didn't know what to say. This was the last thing I was expecting. I felt bad for her, of course. I'd been lucky enough to have parents who were very supportive of both me and my sexuality, but very few people living in that area were so fortunate. "I'm sorry. That's really hard." "Yet. But c'est la vie. Sorry, I know this is awkward. I don't even know you, after all. But I guess I just wanted someone to know." "Anyone would. It's okay." "Thanks." When her friends came out of the bathroom, she leapt to her feet, probably because she didn't want them to see her sitting next to me. "Well, I guess I'm heading out," she whispered very discreetly. "But I guess I'll see you around." "Anytime." And then, as her sad eyes turned spunky again, she blended seamlessly back into that swarm of church girls as if she'd never left their sight. I don't know what it was about her, but I couldn't stop thinking about Ashlyn all night. She was just such an anomaly. An absolutely gorgeous and stunning girl who took initiative, was extremely friendly, who seemed smart and thoughtful, and who just so happened to be a lesbian and also probably a Christian. All in my little country town too. Forget anomaly, she was basically a unicorn. I've got to get to know her, I thought. Where else was I going to find someone like her? So the very next day, I went back to the karaoke cafe and, sure enough, she was there. But alone this time. Damn, I was so excited. Just to be able to talk to her and get to know her better. She was sitting on a bar stool with the widest grin imaginable, almost as though she was expecting me. I was pretty nervous, but I worked up the courage to take a seat next to her. "Hey, Samantha," she beamed. "I thought I might find you here tonight. What are you up to?" "Well, to be honest, I was actually hoping to be able to see you again. Yeah, I know, not the smoothest. But I was young and had never really gotten the opportunity to talk to another girl in a romantic context like this. And I was pretty shy." "Really?" "Yeah." She swiveled her stool to face the other direction for a moment, and her face got pretty red. She seemed really happy that I was there, and I was obviously just over the moon about that. Everything seemed to be going pretty well. I offered to buy her drinks, virgin, obviously, we were both underaged, and we spent the rest of the night talking. "So what's your story?" she asked. "My story? Yeah. Like, where are you from, what are you hoping to accomplish before you die?" "Well, I've lived here pretty much all my life. My dad is an electrician, and my mom does real estate. I just graduated about a month ago and I got accepted into yoga, but, I'll be honest. I'm not really entirely sure what I want to do with my life." "I totally get that," she nearly choked on her Virgin Bloody Mary trying to get the words out. "I've been accepted to Carson Newman, but I'm so stuck about like what exactly I want to major in. I've been pretty good at math my whole life, but like, what does that mean job-wise? Accounting? Physics? I just feel like I can't do much with that." "You'll probably have an easier time finding a job than me. Literally the only thing I'm even remotely good at is history, but I hate working with kids and don't want to be a teacher." "So what does that make me? A historian? Maybe you can be one of those dudes who talks about aliens and crop circles on the History Channel." I nearly spit out my drink. Wow, she had a sense of humor too. Unbelievable. "Yeah, maybe." 4 hours passed between then and when I finally got in my car to leave, but you could have told me it was 4 minutes and I probably would have believed you. She told me a little more about herself. She moved here about 6 months ago, which is probably why I'd never seen her before. She said she was very into her faith, but that she often felt conflicted because of her sexual identity, which she believed to be morally wrong despite being something she couldn't help. I felt terrible for her. As she explained it, the inner turmoil was written all over her face. "I just don't know what to do sometimes. Like, I know it's wrong but I can't help it." "Well, maybe it isn't so wrong," I said. I was trying to walk the thin line between advice and demand. I didn't want to offend her, but man, I didn't want to see her going on like this. I've never felt it was wrong. I'm actually really happy with myself. I bet, if you learn to look at all this in a new way, you could be happy with yourself too." "Maybe," she said, although she didn't seem to believe it at all. "Hey, you wanna get some air?" "Yeah, sure." I paid, and we went outside and fiddled around on the gravel for a while. The sky was so clear that night. There wasn't a trace of streetlight or fog anywhere, and all the stars were so visible. The moon was big and round, and more yellow than I think I'd ever seen it before. "The sky is so beautiful tonight." "Yeah, it is," I said. But I wasn't even paying attention to the sky. I couldn't stop looking at Ashlyn. The little blue sweater she was in, the way the moonlight shone in that beautiful blonde hair, lighting it up. I couldn't take my eyes off her. "Samantha." "Yeah." "I wanted to thank you for listening to me tonight. And for making me feel safe and comfortable to talk about everything I've been going through. You have no idea how much that means to me." "No, Ashlyn, thank you," I replied, "for being so strong and courageous and for entrusting me with all of this. I know how hard it's been for you. But I want you to know that I'm here for you. If you ever want to talk, if you need to get something off your chest, I'm here." "You are?" "Yeah. I am." "Cool," she said with a crack in her voice as if having some kind of epiphany. I was having an epiphany too. I realized that I didn't want Ashlyn to leave the restaurant that night without knowing how I felt about her. I know, it was so sudden, so short notice. I could have waited the next day to tell her, or the next day, but I almost felt like I couldn't wait. The feelings were too strong. She made me want to combust. To tell her every sweet and gentle word imaginable and show her just how she made me feel. Ashlyn. I stuttered. My voice was shaking so bad, and I was really struggling just to get the words out. Yes. She tilted her head, her eyes wide and her mouth agape. It almost seemed like she already knew what I was about to say. I know we've only known each other for a couple days. And I know that you're still not really sure about the whole acting on your desires thing. But I just want you to know that I liked her and thought we should hang out sometime. I could have put it like that, but I didn't. That I don't want to live my life a second longer without you being a part of it. I know, it's crazy. We just met, and we'll both be going away to school soon. But Ashlyn, you are so exceptionally special. I've never met anyone like you, and I don't know if I ever will again. You're so beautiful. Just absolutely stunning. And you're sweet and intelligent and witty, and everything you say is so captivating and profound. To not tell you how I feel and let you slip away without knowing would be the biggest mistake I could ever make. So what do you say? She didn't say anything. She just stood there with a blank expression. Then she took a few strides closer to me. I was expecting maybe a slap in the face or a rejection. She held my face in her hands and kissed me on the mouth. And thus began our time together. And let me tell you, those were the happiest 2 months of my entire life. It was pure bliss. She was so wonderful. Like, I can't even put it into words. We spent nearly every day together fishing down by the lake, going out to see movies, driving all over town at night, and just shooting the shit. We abandoned that karaoke cafe pretty early on. And for the first 2 quarters of that time we never really had any problems. Our personalities meshed so well together, and it seemed to me like she was getting over her hang-ups. But then it would happen, usually while we were making out or something, that she would stop and stare off into space with a certain look that can only be described as petrified. The thing is though, she didn't look particularly guilty about what we were doing. Just scared. Is everything all right? I would ask. Then she would stare straight into my eyes. Her lips would quiver as though she wanted to tell me something, but then she would say something totally different. We shouldn't be doing this. What? This. We shouldn't be doing any of it. Okay, I would say. It was tough because every time she would say things like this, I panicked a little on the inside, fearing she was going to break things off, and I would have been devastated if that happened. But I understood that she was under a lot of pressure and was still getting used to all this. So I suggested we take things a bit more slowly. Maybe then she wouldn't feel so bad. She agreed. Things got a little better for a while, although it was pretty clear to me that her conscience was not any more at ease than it was before. She was just hiding the way she felt so I wouldn't notice. But I was always wondering in the back of my mind what exactly she was thinking, and what it was she wanted to tell me. I'm a pretty perceptive person, but it even took me a while to notice that she started getting these tiny, almost non-existent sores on her arms. And I mean all over. They blended in with her skin well enough, but were perfectly round with tiny black dots in the middle. At first, I assumed maybe it was just acne or something. But she started getting more and more. I'd had acne before back in freshman year, and I knew it probably wasn't supposed to look like this. Hey babe. I'm sorry if this is a little personal, and you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but I was just wondering where you think all these little sores are coming from." "What sores?" she said. Now this kind of raised some flags for me. They were getting pretty obvious at this point, and there's no way she didn't notice them. Maybe she was just too embarrassed to acknowledge them. "These little ones on your arm." I interlaced my hand with hers and pulled her arm out in front of her so she could look. "See?" Her eyes were watering up, and she clenched her lips together as if stopping herself from saying something. "Do they itch or are they sore?" "No." "Well, do you think maybe you should go see a doctor about them?" "No." She yanked her arm from my grasp and started walking away from me. "I'm going home." It was so bizarre for her to just dip out on me like this. She was typically the sweetest and most polite girl you'd ever meet. Really, I mean it. We hadn't had any major arguments yet, and it really surprised me that she just left without giving me any hint as to why she was leaving. Things got a little weird after that. We still hung out all the time, and she was still the Ashlyn I knew and loved, but she became a lot more reserved. We used to goof off and crack jokes with each other all the time, but now we kind of just stayed quiet. All our conversations were so surface level, about the weather, and town gossip, and our respective memories from high school. It really bothered me because I knew she had so much more to say than this but was holding back and almost pretending to be someone else. Until one day, she finally broke down and started crying. "Ashlyn, is everything okay? What's the matter?" I was terrified, as anyone would be, but also kind of excited because maybe I was finally going to get to know what had been going on with her. She was sobbing vehemently. Her face was soggy with tears, and she was borderline hyperventilating. And my God, her facial expression! Saliva dripped from her mouth, and her eyes were rattling. She looked like a little helpless animal that had been abused and left to die roped to a tree. I squeezed her hand, but I was nervous to hold her or comfort her. She looked as though any gentle touch might startle her or cause her a great deal of distress. So I mostly just sat back and waited for her to say something. I. "Yes? Go on, what is it? You can tell me, Ashlyn. Whatever it is. You can tell me, and I promise it'll be okay." She sunk her head into her long, feathery skirt and buried her face in it, hugging her knees with her arms like she often did. "I can't get out." "What?" "I can't get out. I can't get out." She said it with such emphasis and aggression that anyone else would have thought it was almost for comedic effect. But not me. My whole back became a cesspool of goosebumps. "What do you mean you can't get out? Get out from where?" She opened her mouth a bit, deliberating whether or not she was finally going to tell me. Looking back, Christ, I wished she would have. She was so close. But she shut her mouth and didn't say anything for the rest of the night. A few minutes later, we got back in my car, and I drove her home with much uneasiness. I wondered if maybe she'd been getting abused or something, but I knew that she wasn't going to stay with me or anyone else no matter how hard I tried to convince her. After I dropped her off, I contemplated calling someone about this. I didn't really know who to call. The cops, I guess? Or maybe Child Protective Services. But I wanted to give Ashlyn some heads up about it. I was fully aware that this may put a huge strain on our relationship or maybe even cause it to end, but honestly, at this point I didn't care. Her safety was far more important to me than our 2.5-month-long fling. Surprisingly enough, when we saw each other the next day, she seemed perfectly fine. You'd have never guessed she was on the brink of an emotional meltdown just the night before. She wore a thick sweater so her sores were not visible at all, although I never forgot about them. And she was wearing a full face of makeup, which wasn't typical for her. She looked very pretty, and genuinely seemed perfectly fine. She did not seem to be hiding anything, unlike the countless times before when she had hidden the way she really felt from me. Ashlyn? Are you feeling any better today? Much better, her face lit up as she stretched her arms out wide. I honestly feel great. That's good, I said. I was a little suspicious and was definitely still thinking about calling someone, but I thought I'd wait it out a while just to see how she acted for the next couple of days. What do you think caused you to feel better? Well, I talked some things out with my family, and I realized something. And what was that? She squeezed my hand and leaned in for a kiss. A way that I can be gay and still be close to God. Oh, so that's what this was all about. Honestly, I was relieved. Of course I didn't want her to be this emotionally conflicted, but I'd rather it have been something she could work through than something far more sinister. Really? That's awesome. You want to tell me how? She held her finger over her lips. It's a secret. Hey, as long as it would enable her to be healthy and happy with herself, I was all for it. No matter what it was. The next few weeks went really well for us. Ashlyn seemed to be back to her old self. We joked around and were stupid and reckless just like we'd been during the first couple months of our relationship. I was really happy. And I could only hope that things would stay like this for a long while and that Ashlyn would only continue to get better over time. One night, when we were driving down the highway, she turned to me and made what I felt was a rather odd request. Hey, so I know this sounds kind of weird, but would you like to go to church with me sometime? It did sound kind of weird. Not because I wasn't interested or something. I used to go to church when I was younger and often enjoyed it pretty well. But wasn't she super paranoid about people knowing she was gay? And wouldn't having everyone see me there with her just perpetuate that? Sure, I'll go, I said. Because why not? But are you sure it'll be okay? Won't it look kind of bad for us to be there together? No, she said, and she seemed very confident in herself. Don't worry, it'll be okay. Trust me. I do. And I really did. If she was so confident in her decision to bring me to church with her, then who was I to question it? Maybe her family and congregation had changed their minds about her. Maybe they had decided to become more open-minded in general. Or maybe they hadn't yet, but Ashlyn wanted to be bold and take a stand, and maybe show them our relationship as a means of getting them to reconsider their views. Needless to say, I wanted to be supportive of her bravery. So that Sunday, I got all dressed up. I'm not the daintiest person ever, so I didn't have a whole slew of dresses to choose from. I could only find one. It was white with black polka dots and very old-fashioned looking. I remembered that my mother had passed it down to me when she said it didn't fit her anymore. Oh well. It was all I had. For whatever reason, Ashlyn made it very clear that she wanted to pick me up that day instead of the other way around. In fact, this whole affair seemed very meticulously scheduled and planned out. She would drive up to the front of my house, pick me up, we would go to church, stay for lunch, and then go see a movie afterwards. I thought it was rather odd. We were generally very spontaneous people who rarely planned for anything. But I understood that she was probably very nervous to bring me to church with her and probably wanted some sense of control. So I let her have it. At around 8:30 a.m., she pulled into my driveway with sunglasses on and a big pearly grin permeating her face. Her window was rolled down, and she called out to me from the driver's seat. "That's a cute dress. A bit old-fashioned, don't you think?" "Nah, not at all. Get in." I opened the door on the passenger's side, slid into the seat, and met her with a quick peck on the lips. "So, do you think we'll make it there on time?" "Plenty of time," she insisted, "the service doesn't start till 9:30. "Alright, cool." We backed out of my driveway and turned the radio up so loud that it was shaking the entire vehicle. Ashlyn reached out to hold my hand and, honestly, I can't remember anything ever feeling so good. Just singing our hearts out to shitty pop songs and old Outcast hits. And seeing her happy again when she'd been distressed for so long. "Samantha," she said. "Yeah." She turned her face towards me, trying to maintain control of the wheel as she leaned in to kiss me again. It was quick, but wow, I could feel it. She reassumed her spot behind the wheel but wasn't done talking. "I love you." She had never told me that before. And I'd never had the courage to tell her. But now, just watching her move around to the music in her seat, giving me that look that she only gave when she was feeling on top of the world, I knew I loved her. I always had. "I love you too." We didn't say much else on that long car ride. I think we were both still taking in the words that had just been said. And at a certain point, we lost signal, and our jam session had to come to a close. I noticed that the longer we drove, the less we saw. At first, there were restaurants, and convenience stores, and a fair amount of people out and about. Then, there were gas stations and a tobacco store or two. Now, there was road. Long stretches of road, crumbling and riddled with potholes, running deep into the mountain with vast fields of dandelions on either side. "Damn, this place really is way out here." "I told you," she chuckled in a matter-of-fact kind of way. "That's why I told you to get up early." "Yeah. What kinds of people go to this church anyway? Mountain people? Hillbillies? It's so off in the middle of nowhere that I'm surprised it even has a membership." She didn't say anything. Just kept her eyes fixed on the miles and miles of road ahead. I didn't want to say anything, but I noticed our tank was nearly on empty. I would have told her to stop and get gas before we drove all the way up here, but I had no idea it was so far away. Needless to say, I was getting this uneasy feeling. I kept imagining us breaking down somewhere in the middle of the boonies, and neither of us had any cell phone service up here. If that were to happen, God knows who we might run into or what they might try to do to us. My stomach was in knots, but I decided to keep my mouth shut. "This is the road," she finally said. "Thank God." I tried to pass it off as some kind of sarcastic joke, but it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I had goosebumps from head to toe. It felt so cold in that car. The road was little more than a tiny dirt path that could have been easily missable if not for a rusty little sign that stood like a warning on the side of the main highway we were on. It was incredibly rocky. Our car was very obviously struggling just to pass through. Gravel shot up at us, undoubtedly causing some damage to the hood. I stared out far ahead of us as Ashlyn was rather focused on her driving. I was hoping to see a little building, any building really, just to gain some kind of reassurance that this place did in fact exist. But there was nothing. "Babe, are you sure you turned down the right road?" "Positive. Didn't you see the sign?" "Yeah, but I feel like we've been going down this road for 2 miles, and there's no sign of a church anywhere. "SHH, just relax," she said as she squeezed my hand. I didn't know if she was making fun of me for being scared or if she was genuinely trying to calm me down. "See? There it is up ahead." I felt my heart drop down into my stomach. At the very least, I was hoping for a regular-looking place. Even if it was small, even if it looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 70s, I wanted to come upon a place that made me say, "Oh, you're right. There really is a little church up here." Something that would ease the tension in my gut and help me to shake off all these bad feelings I was getting. But this place looked like it could have been a century old. It was built from stone, but on every side, there were huge gaping holes where massive chunks of rock had fallen through. They now lay adjacent to the church like little tombstones. From the holes, there were weeds and wild flowers springing up and pressing themselves against the side of the building. There appeared to be stained-glass windows, 3 on every side of the church, deep blue and this ghostly violet color. A steeple rose like a standard from the forefront, a crucifix sitting comfortably at the top. There were no cars here. And from what I could see, no people. "Ashlyn, what the hell is this?" "What?" she snapped. She seemed genuinely offended by my question. "Where are you taking me? This place doesn't even look operational. There aren't even any cars here." She stared straight ahead almost as though I never spoke a word. "We must be early." She pulled into a little patch of grass that lay at the front of the building. The place had no proper parking lot, not even a little allotment of dirt. She put the car in park and we just kind of sat there for a few minutes. At first, neither of us said anything. It seemed to me that Ashlyn knew she was going to have a hard time convincing me to go in with her. My hands held on for dear life to my seat. Never in my life had I felt more reluctant to leave the comfort and safety of a car. "Ashlyn," I finally said, "I'm not getting out of this car." "Why not?" she groaned. She looked visibly upset at this point, her eyes welling up and her lips quivering. "I just don't have a good feeling about this. I wish you would have told me what kind of place this was or where it was. I would have told you from the start that I didn't want to go. Not only that, but you shouldn't be coming up here either." "Ashlyn, this is not a safe place for a 17-year-old girl to be. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. We haven't seen a single person or car for probably 5 miles. So what do you want me to do, just turn around and go back home?" "Yes." "No," she retorted, "we're not leaving. I already told everyone you'd be here." "Who's everyone? I don't see anyone." She sighed and crossed her arms over the steering wheel as if giving up. I felt bad. I really did. But I could feel my fight or flight response kicking into gear. I'd never had a worse feeling about a place before. "Samantha," she cried, "this was going to be really important to me. Do you know how hard it's been for me to work up the nerve to bring you up here? How much deliberation I've done. I've been waiting for this day for weeks. It's so important to me. I don't want you to just leave like this. Can you not just trust me? Just this once?" I didn't want to say yes. I shouldn't have said yes. Nothing was going to stop this terrible feeling I was getting. But I did know how important this was to her. How important her faith was to her. How important I was to her. This was going to be her chance to reconcile the two. To help both her family and church to become more accepting of not only her, but of our relationship. And I was really going to take that away from her just because I didn't like the way a place looked? It was hard to say, but I eventually gave in. "Okay," I uttered, "but you owe me later." She laughed. That made me feel at least a little better. "Thank you. This means a lot to me." We got out of the car, locked it, and I wrapped my arms around myself. I was still freezing cold even though it was pretty warm out. We stepped up to the church's little red doors, and Ashlyn gently pushed them open. They creaked terribly. Inside, there was a little lobby-looking area. It was rectangular, and there really wasn't much in it, a little table with 2 stacks on it, one of Bibles and one of hymnals. There was a dusty candelabra and a large set of doors that I could only assume led to the sanctuary. At my right, there was an enormous stained glass image of some biblical scenario. I was no theologian, but even I was pretty sure I knew what the scene was. It was Jesus giving the Sermon on the Mount. I remembered it from my many mornings spent in Sunday school as a child. In the picture, there was a crowd of people listening to Jesus preach. Jesus had his arm raised high in the air, with his finger pointed out towards his right. Towards the door to leave. It was stupid, but I couldn't help but feel like the image was speaking to me. Almost as though it was warning me that I needed to get out of there as soon as possible. Another chill ran up my spine. All I could think about was how badly I wanted to get this thing over with so we could be on our merry way to the movie theater. Then I smelled something. Christ, what is that? I can't believe I didn't notice it before. It was rancid. I cupped both my hands around my face. Is there a dead animal in here or something? Ashlyn stood there silently. I reached for the handle of the sanctuary doors. Samantha, wait. Don't go in there yet. I turned to face her. I didn't like the look on her face. It looked like she was hiding something. Something big. She held her arms out in front of her as though she was ready to stop me from opening the doors herself. Don't tell me what to do. I opened the doors. Christ. Christ. Jesus. Fuck. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw in that room. From the rafters hung dozens of ropes. And from the ropes bodies. All naked. Dozens of them. Stinking. Rotting. Decaying. Some were strung up by the neck. Others by a foot. There were men, women, and children. And others that were so desecrated, you couldn't tell what they were. But they all shared one thing in common, they were all covered head to toe with tiny sores. Perfectly round with tiny black dots in the middle. Phew, the word struggled to pry itself loose from my shaking lips. I started foaming at the mouth. I started sobbing. I started hyperventilating. I could have tried to find my breath, but I wasn't sure I wanted to. I plummeted down to my knees and started vomiting. All over the floor. If that horrific sight wasn't enough to make me spill out all over the place, then the stench was. The scent of rotting human flesh filled my nose. Everything about this place was evil. Ashlyn rushed over to my aid. She kneeled down beside me and held my hair back, allowing me to vomit more and more. Continuous streams of digested food and even a little blood. She did not seem at all fazed by the mangled corpses dangling all around us. What the fuck, was all I could say. I know. I know it's surprising. She held tightly onto me. I did all I could to push her away from me. Don't push me away, Samantha. Please don't push me away. And don't worry. Most of what happened to these people was consensual. I could barely think, but I knew that that made absolutely no shred of sense. These people were mutilated. Some of them were torn limb from body. Some of them didn't have heads. "Look," she whispered, kissing my face and wiping some of the bile away with her hands. "Look at what they all say." I didn't want to look, but I forced myself to. The one that first caught my attention was a woman. She was hung by the neck. She still had her hair, but it was matted and overrun with flies. She was clearly pregnant. There was a crude wooden sign nailed over her tummy. I clenched my head in disgust as I read the words scribbled on it. Fornication. I looked around the room. There was a man who had a sign nailed over his eyes, lust. There were two men tied up together. One of them had a sign nailed to his penis, and the other, whose back seemed to have been broken, was bent over with a sign nailed to his ass. Both said sodomy. There was a little girl with her tongue sticking out. I could see a nail jutting out on either side of her of it, lying. I didn't understand. I didn't want to. Everybody sins, but some sin worse than others, Ashlyn said. She pulled up her sleeve and glanced down at all the little sores on her arm, identically matching the sores of everyone else in the room. She had clearly gotten many more since the last time I looked at them. I wanted to believe that I could get by with the needle alone. That the needle would be enough of a punishment for me to still be able to get into heaven. What the fuck was the needle? Then Ashlyn held her arm close to her and started crying. She looked somehow devastated. But I realized that the needle was not enough of a punishment for me. I was too bad. Too perverse. The only way I was gonna be able to get to heaven was if I died. You too, Samantha. No one gets to heaven unscathed. Before we come out on the other side with our gold intact, we must first go through the fire. If we don't go through the fire while we're still here on earth, then we most definitely will in hell. My mouth was agape. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Or what I was seeing. Any of it. Just think, she smiled through her tears, all these people are in heaven now. They're dead, I whimpered. All of them. And we will be too, soon. She grabbed both of my hands and squeezed tightly. They're coming. I started hyperventilating again. Who? Them. She pointed out one of the stained glass windows. I looked out, and all I could see was movement. The windows were too dim and opaque to allow me to see who exactly was outside. But what I could see was shadows and outlines. Tons of them. Of people in all black. I gasped and mustered up all the strength I had to jump to my knees. They were shaking so badly that they nearly gave out. The first thought I had was to grab one of the signs, the one nailed over the man's eyes, and use it to try and break one of the other stained glass windows. I sprinted over to the corpse and got both my trembling hands around the sign. I kept yanking and pulling, but it wouldn't budge. I started panicking. This was all or nothing. Either I was going to yank this thing free, smash the window, and get out of here, or I was going to die. With all my might I pulled. Eventually, the sign broke free, but only with two eyes stuck to the nails in the back. I was horrified, but I didn't have much time to react. I bolted over to a window, rammed the sign against it, and shattered the glass. I heard a door open. My whole body shivered. But I couldn't stop now. I jumped up and used my arms to boost me to the opening where the window was. I winced. Shards of glass were cutting into my abdomen. Thousands of them. I can't remember anything hurting so badly in my life. There was the sound of a door slamming. I heard voices and the jostling of feet. I threw myself out of that window and landed on my side. I screamed. More pieces of glass had sunk into my skin. I leapt to my feet and booked it out of there. I was running for dear life and I wasn't even sure if my feet would be able to keep up with me. I hadn't thought in advance about what I would do once I got back into the woods. I'd forgotten that I was in the middle of nowhere, with no cell phone service, and that there probably wasn't anyone in a 6-mile radius who would be able to help me. So I just kept running and running. I didn't stop, no, not for a moment. My eyes were wide open and alert. At any moment, I could have run into one of those people in black. It scared me to think that there could be more out here to keep watch and make sure no one got away. 77 comments. Share. Save. Hide. Report. 96% upvoted. What are your thoughts? Log in or sign up? Log in. Sign up.
Holy shit, that was terrifying. Well, I mean, not terrifying, but it's so much as in spooky story. Yeah. Holy cow. That is straight up terrifying. Again, for like advice, I would say if you're ever in this scenario, going out that far with no retreat or anything should automatically be the ultimate red flag, no matter how much you love said person. Also, goddamn, like I don't see anyone like being that oh, this is good, let me just go out to a giant distance and just being like, this is okay, because no, it's not okay. But yeah, anyway, that was really spooky in my opinion, at least story wise. But minus that is the end of our subreddit 50/50, or not subreddit 50/50, Reddit no sleep, what's it called, text to speech bot. Hey, I'm not gonna say that. Hey Gears, thanks for the follow. No, you didn't give me a follow. Hey, I just noticed chat now. Anyway, yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna ban you, bro. Honestly, I'm sick and tired. There's people that come in here every once in a while who are just like, let me just ban, you know, make a name that sounds like the N-word and try and get Halos to read it. Nice try. For those who are wondering what just happened there when I just looked over at chat, this guy named Gears, I'm gonna say his name backwards so I don't screw it up. Gears Knee just tried to get me to say the N-word, and when you put those two words together it sounds like the N-word. If you're in there trying to do that type of stuff, don't do it. You're just gonna get banned by me once I figure it out. Whether I accidentally say it and I have to go back and edit it, or I have to, well, what's it called? Catch myself, because I almost just said it. But I held myself back. You're gonna have to try harder than that. Anyway, that's pretty much it. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, this is a stream of Halos 2 and through, and I go on 6 to 7 every single day, and I go for about 3 hours. Vice versa, if you're watching this on YouTube, I upload or Twitch, I upload the Jersey broadcast to my YouTube channel at Halos 2 and through 1. If you chat my chat room for a periodic time, my bot will drop a Discord link. Vice versa, that if you're on YouTube, the Discord link is in the description. It's a place where you chat with me or anyone who joins into the chat through the public or general chat. I also have a secondary chat if you want to get into streaming. It's there for you. Also, on top of that, I post when I go live and funny clips in the stream. Once again, don't be like Mr. Gears here and try and get away with it. It doesn't work. Also, if you're watching this and about or wanting to know when there's going to be another subreddit video, I don't know. I don't feel like posting another subreddit in the nearby future. Also, if you're watching the Unity series and you're wondering where the stream was today or why I haven't uploaded one in a while, well, for one, because the Mansions of Madness videos didn't go up when I uploaded the last video dump, so that's why they're kind of delayed. And the Unity stream should be coming out tomorrow. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is already passed, so don't worry about it. But yeah, guys, like this content, kill like button, subscribe, become a Spartan today. Halos out. Bye.